Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the best podcast on YouTube, the only football podcast. My name's Kyle. We got the man, the myth, the legend, Jinja. How you doing, buddy? Needed this one. Well, man, I hope everything's all right. I hope nothing. I hope you just needed it like because you enjoy it, not because you had a really bad day. But if you did have a bad day, I hope it's okay. Hope it's not too serious. Man, I am obviously one of the I am one of the fans right now that has been disappointed 2 out of 3 Sundays and 2 out of 3 Mondays, because there is no victory Monday when you're disappointed on Sunday. And man, it's been tough. It's been rough. I guess one of the silver linings is we had one of our shorts hit 230,000 views. Absolutely insane numbers that we are able to pull, which has also led to 50, 60, 70 subscribers. So we're going to go live now and, continue the good momentum, because week 4 is going to be good. I mean, tomorrow we have the Seahawks going to Arizona, taking on the Cardinals, which I'm going to talk about lines and betting later, but this is going to be a good game. And then we get to the games, international games. We have the Vikings and the Steelers. And before Aaron Rodgers was officially a Steeler, there was some, rumors that Aaron Rodgers would potentially be a Viking. And I, for one, loved it. I thought it was awesome. I thought it made sense for the Vikings. I thought it made sense for Aaron Rodgers. I also thought it was funny if another Packers quarterback went from Green Bay to the Jets to the Vikings. So I thought the whole thing was kind of funny, but it didn't ultimately work out. How serious were the Vikings in these talks with Aaron Rodgers? Were they happening at all? I don't know. But if they were happening, 9:30 a.m. Eastern time is going to be Aaron Rodgers' chance to say, Vikings, man, you could have had me. You could have had me. And how good are those Steelers? I mean, remember last year around this time, nobody was really saying that the Steelers were quote unquote good, but they still found them way to being a 10-2 team. And I'm like, man, this is just what the Steelers do. They don't put a product on out there that makes you only 3 games into the year go, damn, that's going to be a really good team. But you blink and they've won 90% of their games by week 10. So I just don't pick against them. I picked the Steelers to win the North this year. I got a lot of slack for that. The Ravens starting the year 1-2. Not a lot of people predicted that. But on top of that, next week, they're playing the Chiefs, and either the Chiefs or the Ravens are going to be 1-3. And I think a lot of people were surprised by that. The Chiefs and the Ravens, I wasn't. Okay. And now this has nothing to do with like the Denver Broncos and not liking the Chiefs. It just had to do with me thinking, man, the Chiefs have some real issues on offense that I didn't believe they addressed. We got Jinja saying Steelers win the North, baby. At least I got Jinja. At least I got Jinja on my side. And he said I had to help put you onto that. You asked me where I heard that early. Oh, what was that? Oh, yeah. That's right. The Green Bay Jets Vikings ties would have been hilarious. It would have been funny. It would have almost been like, is he trolling all of us? But it's gonna be good. Then we get Commanders and Falcons, and I just put out a short about coaches that are on the hot seat. And Raheem Morris is one of those coaches. And the short essentially just says who's going to be fired first. And it had 4 head coaches. Raheem Morris was one of them. But the Atlanta Falcons, it's funny how just 1 week ago, when people were making their predictions for the Falcons-Panthers game, a lot of people were like, this Falcons team might be really good. They might be like the new 49ers. And I'm seeing all this kinds of stuff. And it's like, the Falcons were coming off 1 win in their past 7 games, if you include preseason. They lost all 3 of their preseason games. They lost week 1. So they were 0-4. Then they won week 2. And then they lost week 3. So they're 1-5 in their last 6 games. And everybody was just a game ago saying that this might be like the next best team in the NFC. And I get it. Like, look, they traded back into the first round to get a pass rusher in Pierce, I believe. They drafted like 28th. After week 1, he led all rookies in pressure rate. So you're starting to see that them trading back into the first round did pay dividends, and they're able to get pressure, which is something they weren't able to do last year, hence the trade back into the first round. And then you add in all the weapons with London and Pitts, and, obviously Bijan Robinson is the most dynamic running back, or one of the top 3. And on paper, and I haven't even mentioned, like, Penix is pretty good. And if there's one thing Penix has kind of made his MO, it's winning football games late, going on game-winning drives. He's kind of made a name for being the quarterback that you want with the ball in his hands late in a game. So it all kind of works together, but yet they've only won 1 game in their last 5. So usually that's when coaches start to go, is when you have a roster that is just too talented to be this bad. Now, the Commanders are playing the Falcons, and like, the Commanders are not like going to be an easy team to just it's not a get right game. The Commanders just beat the living crap out of the Raiders with the backup quarterback. I felt like that was going to be a bad win for the Commanders, bad loss for the Raiders. And now they're going to be playing the Falcons. And if the Falcons lose this game to a respectable opponent, all of a sudden, Raheem Morris potentially is being talked about in the same kind of way we're talking about Dable. So a lot is happening. Now the Saints and the Bills are playing, and last time I checked, the Bills were 16.5-point favorites. Very rare to see an NFL game get to that point, 16.5. That is quite the disrespectful kind of way. If you're a Saints fan, you're thinking, man, that is disrespectful. It's still the NFL. Any given Sunday. What happened to any given Sunday? 16.5? Are you kidding me? But yeah, 16.5. And the line hasn't even come down. So the public and the sharps are all betting this 16.5 line, saying, yeah, we think the Bills can actually win by 16.5 points, no problem. Last time the Bills were a heavy favorite, I did the same thing. I took the points. It was against the Dolphins on Thursday night. And yeah, that was a good game. I mean, they ended up losing by 10, but they had an opportunity. They were down 7 late in the game, 3 minutes left. Tua, I can't remember. I think it was an interception or turnover on downs. It was an interception. Ended the game there. And then the Bills, because of the 26-yard interception return, were able to kick a field goal, even though they didn't really get any yards, to make it a 2-possession game, and essentially ended the game right there. But that's a great example. I mean, the Dolphins were an 0-2 team. The offense was not clicking. Tyreek Hill, his first year not being voted captain with the Dolphins, things just aren't clicking offensively. Tua's can't throw the ball down the field. This is usually an offense. It's all about rhythm and timing and getting the ball out of Tua's hands quick. Tua's never in his career averaged more time before throwing the ball. So when you look at the game on the 22-man view, you really see that the receivers aren't really getting open. Like, sometimes we get mad at the quarterback for holding the ball too long, but the camera view that you're watching, it's like you don't know what the quarterback's really looking at. And then when you do get a glance at it, you're like, there's nothing. There's nobody open. So the Dolphins have kind of just been in a rough place, but it's still the NFL and it's a divisional opponent. And whenever you get these like 17 point spreads, that's typically when the other team almost beats you, right? I think the Packers were a huge favorite against Cleveland. That was a no-brainer as well. I didn't think Cleveland would win the game outright, but definitely knew it was going to be a close game, as did everybody else, right? It had it written all over it. Then we got the Chargers and the Giants, and this is going to be Jackson Dart making his first start as a New York Giant, which, well, I mean, it had to happen. Now, why go with Russell Wilson to begin with if you were just going to bench him right before he plays, like, I don't know, the Eagles and the Chargers and the Broncos? Jackson Dart's going to have a tough go, to start his season. But I don't really care. Like, if I'm the front office, I'm telling Jackson Dart, like, look, dude, I don't actually care. I mean, I'm not saying it like this, but it's like, it's not about winning the game. I just need you to go out there, play free, be yourself, play your brand of football, make good decisions, protect the football, and get better every single week. Just show us what you're made of, right? Don't worry so much about, like, if I lose, am I going to keep my job? Like, do your first round draft pick, right? You might spend this whole season just learning and growing and making mistakes, but as we've seen from other quarterbacks that have a rough first season, like Peyton Manning, you get it out of your system. You learn and you grow. That's what it's all about, learning and growing. But it can't be any worse than what we saw with Russell Wilson, because at least Jackson Dart gives you better mobility. He can, run still. Russell Wilson can't give you that. And plus, that series of like first, second, third down, whatever, fourth down, they went for it on fourth, whatever we saw in the red zone at the end of that game, that might be like one of the worst 4 stretch plays in a row I've ever seen. And I saw Russell Wilson in Denver, so that's saying something. We got Jinja, hell of an aspect, as in holding the ball, no one being open, going hand in hand. And then we got Edub in the chat. Falcons looked hideous versus the Panthers. Yeah, dude. Was it 30-0? I mean, God, how does that happen? You were right. Start him week 1 or after these Wolves for sure. Yeah. It's a very weird timing here. Happy Wednesday. Hello, everyone. We got Daniel Berry Sports Highlights in the chat. Always good to see you, especially Edub and Jinja as well. So we'll see, right? We're going to throw them into the Wolves. We got the Titans and the Texans. Titans are looking for their first win, and so are the Texans. The good news is one of them's going to get it, unless this game ends in a tie, which weirdly I could actually see happening. I wouldn't rule that out of the realm of possibility. As a matter of fact, if there is one tie this week, it would be the Titans and the Texans. And I'm going to start doing that. At the very end of our predictions, we're going to say if there was a tie, it would be this game. That's going to be a new thing. I'm making a note right now so I don't forget. If there was a tie prediction. Yeah. Spoiler, this would be my Titans, Texans. Both offenses having some problems. Two quarterbacks that are capable, but honestly, like I've been one of the people that continue to back the Titans because I saw the Titans week 1. Cam Ward's first game was in Denver, and I got to say I was very, very impressed with what I saw from Cam Ward. And then he had a tough game with the with the Rams, and then he had to play the Colts, and the Rams were up 26-6 on the Eagles. Sucks for them that they ended up losing that game, but we know that the Rams are really good, and the Colts look like the surprise team of the year. So the line right now is 7 for Houston. Houston is a 7-point favorite at home. I'm once again, I can't believe I keep doing this and it keeps burning me and I keep doing it anyway. I'm going Titans +7 on this one. Right. And I'm not giving away like all of my predictions because me and Rick are doing that tomorrow at noon. But I'll give you this one. Like, I think the Titans are one of those teams that is going to be frisky. I know they're going on the road, but they're looking for their first win. And the Texans, like, they've given me nothing for me to say, like, okay, yeah, I trust that team, right? To go and hang more than a touchdown on a team that's looking for their first win as well. I think it's going to be a low scoring, close game, probably a boring one, maybe overtime. The winner, I think, is going to win by like 3. Right. Then we got the Browns and the Lions, and the Browns are coming off of their Super Bowl. I don't expect it to continue. I got the Lions winning pretty easy. Then I'm not going to give any more predictions, but the Panthers and the Patriots, I mean, we all had the Lions. What are we talking about? Panthers and Patriots are playing. We get a Super Bowl rematch. One of the first Super Bowls I remember watching as a kid. Panthers, man. I don't know. I mean, they just won 30-0. So that's a tough one. I don't even know what to do with that. Maybe you guys do. Colts, Rams. Colts, man. Now, this is kind of like the first rubber meets the road game for the Colts. I mean, they beat Denver, but Denver was like a team that's kind of struggling. And then the week after, the Colts, who did they beat last week? It was a team that wasn't the Titans. Okay. So now it's time for the Colts to go on the road and travel to LA and beat Matthew Stafford. All right. This is a real, like, you win this game and you're going to be in everybody's top 6 in the power rankings, top 5, probably. Okay. What an opportunity. It's crazy. The NFL, man, you're just 4 games away from being in the top 5, depending on if you've put any bad film out. And the Colts haven't really done that. So they're in good shape. The Jaguars and the 49ers, Jags with Liam Cohen. Look, I still think the Jags are a 10-win team, but a 10-win team still is going to lose 7 times. And I think this is a tough one. You're going all the way to Santa Clara from Jacksonville, Florida. You're playing a 49ers team with a good defense. Now, Nick Bosa is gone for the year. Brock Purdy, I think he's going to be out in this game. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But, we also have Ricky Pearsall on the injury report. I'm gonna reveal tomorrow. I really don't know. I need to sleep on it. Ravens and Chiefs. Well, like I said, one of these teams is going to be 1-3, and The Chiefs are turning into a team that's probably going to be a wild card team. Now, it's still early to say that. I mean, it's really early. Like, the Chiefs could win their next 10 games and be 13-2. But did you like what you saw against the Giants? I didn't. It was ugly. The Giants game was ugly. It wasn't ugly on one side. It was ugly on both sides. Xavier Worthy may come back. We need to see what the team looks like with him. And also, like, him opting not to have surgery so that he would be available. What is that going to look like? Like, is he going to be able to take hits? And if he can't, how does that affect his snap count? Obviously, they had to weigh out the pros and cons. But I'm just curious to see what this is actually going to look like. But I know the Ravens have had their problems, but it's hard not to trust the Ravens. I mean, their 2 losses come against the Lions and the Ravens. You know, the Ravens' 2 losses come against the Lions and the Bills. Like, the Chiefs have lost. Well, I guess they lost to the Chargers and the Eagles, so those are 2 good teams as well. And it is in Arrowhead, but the Chiefs are coming off a win and the Ravens are coming off a loss. If you want to kind of find an angle, maybe that gives you an angle, like the Ravens need this because they just lost. This is a tough one. And it's a tough one because none of us can, like, come to terms with one of these teams being 1-3, right? Even if you had them being a bad team, like I did, not bad, but a team that was going to struggle, like, a lot. And I thought the Chiefs were going to do that. Even if you did, though, it's still hard to see one of these teams falling to 1-3, and therefore it's hard to predict a winner. The Bears and the Raiders, man. The Bears, man, coming off a big win against the Cowboys. That was one I predicted as well. I don't know. Sometimes you just have a feeling about a game. And last week, the Bears-Cowboys game was a feeling. I know a lot of Cowboy fans that were really mad about all of the bets coming in. Because, you know, what's funny is, like, I don't know if there's a database or, like, how people find out, you know, the public's betting this team, and then the wise guys, the sharps, Vegas's millionaires, those are the people that are betting against the public. Okay. And I don't know if there's a database that tells you, like, how, but from what I heard on podcasts I listened to is that the sharps were all betting on the Bears last week. Now, I don't know why, because, you know, sometimes I feel like a game just has a feeling, and it doesn't just have a feeling. I think we don't realize, you know, they say use 10% of your brain, right? So I think sometimes we have a feeling and we go with our feeling, but what we don't realize is that feeling is backed up by decades and decades of data that's all subconscious, and it's there, but it manifests as a feeling. And, like, there was games last week that I'm like, I don't know why, like, the Steelers, I just have a feeling, and then I find out later in the week, like, no team is more successful or more profitable as a road underdog than Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin's the most profitable underdog coach on the road, and that's when I realized it. I'm like, oh, that's why I had a feeling, you know, because I watch every game every year for my whole life. So sometimes, you know, I don't know exactly why I have a feeling, but those feelings, you know, are deeply rooted in something that we don't even know that it's there. And I don't know what it was about that Bears game that I had a feeling about, but I'm sure there is something there if you look far enough or hard enough, because I took the over on Caleb Williams and Roma Dunze. I thought it would be a high-scoring game. I didn't. I picked the over on Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb, but CeeDee actually got hurt in this game, which was a bummer. But the Bears were able to pull it off, and they did it in the exact fashion I thought they would. And Ginger said, Kyle, you just described perfectly why we have stereotypes. Wow. That's deep. Years and years of evidence ingrained into you, a feeling. Wow. That's as real as Uncle Ginge can get. That's crazy. We're getting deep on the Only Football podcast tonight. And some of us are going to be getting deep later, too. All right. That takes us to... I've been waiting all day for Sunday night. All right, here's a Jack from NBC. Damon and the Browns are the best on TV. The Packers and Cowboys on the moon now. Jordan Love going through deep. Dak Prescott, there's one thing to say, yeah. This is an all-time classic. The Packers and the Cowboys, the battle for America's team. Micah Prescott, Micah Parsons. Holy crap. Dyslexic. Turned up to 10. Micah Parsons returning to place he used to call home. The Dallas Cowboys, will they welcome him with open arms? That's a rhetorical question. We know that they won't. They're going to be booing. They're going to be throwing. There's going to be cursing and fighting and punching and yelling and screaming and cussing. They're going to step back and then keep bussing. Then they're going to realize it's time for me to go. They're going to stop, jump in their vehicle. I'm just kidding, but seriously. Give me the Packers to get back on track, because it is one of those games that you just know the Packers were made to win this game. I don't know if I've ever seen the Cowboys beat the Packers my entire life. I can't recall. I'm pretty sure that catch, that wasn't a catch, that made Dez Bryant lose his mind. I'm pretty sure that would have beaten the Packers, but that's like the closest thing I can remember to the Cowboys beating the Packers. Last time they played, Mike McCarthy was the head coach for the Dallas Cowboys, and he was also the coach for the Green Bay Packers, and they had a lot of self-inflicted penalties. They had a lot of false starts and delay of games, and 3rd and 1 turns into 3rd and 5 and 3rd and 6, and man, the Cowboys were just out-coached by the coach that would replace Mike McCarthy. And that coach is still in Green Bay. I can't say the same for Dallas. But Mike McCarthy is not a bad coach, man. He really isn't. I think he's one of the most underrated coaches in the NFL, to be honest. Cowboys had the most 40-point games in the last 3 years. Yet Mike McCarthy is always treated like leftover bologna sandwich. It's like, if you're starving, you'll take it, but you're not going to like ask for it, you know? Right? That's why Mike McCarthy's not on a team. What about the Saints? You know, they didn't even want him. I mean, I don't get it. The guy knows how to score a lot of points, but is he a culture setter? Does he build relationships with the players? I don't know. I don't know much about him, to be honest. Maybe that's part of the problem. You know? I mean, I feel like I know a lot about Dan Campbell. He's been around for like 10% as long. So maybe that is the issue with McCarthy. Maybe he's just not a personable guy. Hell of a football coach, I think. when it comes to setting the offense up for success. All right, let's go to Monday Night Football. Are you kidding me? We have a double header. How dare you? How dare you? You remember that little girl? How dare you? How dare you put a double header on Monday Night Football when the Broncos are playing? You're only allowed to do that week 1, and that's if it's a double header and the Broncos are playing the Raiders. And it's got to be in Oakland, not Vegas, not LA. I want to see the baseball field. I want them to play in the Coliseum. But a Broncos home game, doubleheader. Jeez, at least the other game is the Jets and the Dolphins, because there will not be any, competition. Who's going to be like, oh, I wish I could watch the Broncos game, but I got to catch the Jets Dolphins? Nobody. But honestly, what's up with these double headers? I thought that was a one-time thing. And then they didn't even do it week 2, right? Because usually they do it week 1, but because of the Brazil game, I thought this year that they just don't do that anymore, because week 2 came around and they didn't do it, right? Yeah. But then they did it week 3. And then I was like, oh, okay. So we are doing it, but now we're doing it week 4. What is this? Are we just doing this now? I don't feel like there was an official announcement that we're going to be doing double headers on Monday night. Like before, it was like if it was happening, there was a reason. It was a holiday, week 1 or week 2, but really, it was a week 1 thing, opening season. But like, what is this random double header? I'm not against it. I'm really not. I'm kind of against it. Look, I'm not against it. I'm against them stacking them on top of each other. Give me a double header on Monday night. Inject that shit in my veins, but make it at 5 o'clock, 5:30, and then put the next one at 8:30, 9 o'clock. But don't give me a 7:30 and an 8:30 start time. All right? I don't like it. I don't like it. You're robbing me of a primetime game, because obviously I can't be in 2 places at once. And those people that can put 2 football games on your TV at the same time, unless I'm betting, I can't watch football like that. If I'm betting, and not even on Monday Night Football, if I'm betting, I don't typically want to watch football like that, because I can just go back and forth and keep track of the games. But like, if you're betting and you got like a 6-game parlay on, and you're just keeping track of like the scores, the overall like vibe of the game, like, oh, this one's the Cleveland's running away with, this one the Broncos are in a nail biter, this one, and you're just trying to like keep up with your bet slip, like, I get that. But if you're just sitting at home with no bets in, watching 2 football games at the same time, you're a psychopath. Like, you are a psychopath. You're going to cheat on your wife. I'm sure of it. Because you can't just have one thing and be happy. You need both. Right? You better get help before it gets too late. All right, let's get into some fantasy football injury. Not just injury report, but let's start with that. All right. Starting off, I'm going to give you, this has been updated at 8 p.m. So 43 minutes ago. Okay. This is the latest and greatest. It doesn't get much later or greater than this, okay? The Bills escaped their Week 3 win over the Dolphins without any fantasy-relevant injuries. Congratulations. I'm starting with the AFC East, the Miami Dolphins. Darren Waller. What happened to Darren Waller? Do you remember this? We had to look it up. after the game on Thursday night. I'm like, what happened to Darren Waller? I'm pretty sure that they shipped Jonnu Smith to the Pittsburgh Steelers because of Darren Waller, and Darren Waller was going to I guess, fill that role, but he came out of retirement, right? This guy dropped a rap album. I don't know if you've heard about this. It's bad. It's really bad. But seriously, Darren Waller gave up his rap career to come back to the NFL to play for Mike McDaniels, who very well could be on his way to not just being fired, but being his new rap, I don't know, endorser. I just feel like Mike McDaniel and Darren Waller being an ex-rapper, somehow this all works. And it's no wonder he came out of retirement to play for Mike McDaniel, who said that he expects Waller to make his season debut week 4, which is huge news because there were people, fans, I'm talking Reddit threads, I'm talking all of it, saying that it is very likely that the team isn't even going to see Darren Waller this year. There were people saying just don't even think about it. Don't even talk about it because you're just going to be disappointed. But the reality is we just found out the expectation, Darren Waller, his debut. Do you guys know how good Darren Waller is, dude? Like I'm telling you, Darren Waller, let me put it this way. John Gruden, who's, I don't know, do you know Feeling Nicey? John Gruden's Feeling Nicey. Look it up on YouTube. He will just be talking like, I'm gonna paraphrase here. Derrick Henry, 17 carries, 315 yards, and 3 touchdowns. That's got me feeling nicey. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, I looked like a crazy person just there. But look, John Gruden looks possessed when he's doing these feeling nicey. Got me feeling nicey. All right, I got to show you guys. I can't let this be another moment where you guys don't know what feeling icy is. Feeling nicey. Gruden. Here you go. Share screen. Share. Here you go. Ready?
Of the Detroit Lions. He gets smashed early in the game, but he comes back and he smashes the Minnesota Vikings for 190 yards and 4 touchdowns. Gibbs of the Detroit Lions. He gets smashed early in the game, but he comes back and he smashes the Minnesota Vikings for 190 yards and 4 touchdowns. Gibbs of the Detroit Lions.
Anyway, I love that shit. But anyway, John Gruden said himself that Darren Waller is the best quarterback the best athlete he's ever coached. Think about all of the decades, all of the dynasties, all of the players that Gruden has coached. And Darren Waller, who's got a hell of a story, a guy that battled with addiction, a guy that's like got a lot of character for what you would call a young man. He's been through a lot of different lives. Like I said, he's got a rap career. He decided to come back, and he felt like he had more to offer the game of football. And he does, dude. Like his heart wasn't in it, obviously, so he stepped away. But if his heart ever lines up with what his physical capabilities are, Darren Waller had the potential to be one of the all-time great tight ends in the history of the sport. You're talking about a guy that has like a insane vertical, insane weight. He moves his body like a receiver, big as a tight end. They don't make him like Darren Waller. And it was a shame that, he was a Raider, so I was okay with the retirement. But Darren Waller, man, coming back to the Dolphins, could this be, if Darren Waller does have it, man, if he is in good football shape, right? If he took this revenge return to the NFL, sometimes you take a year off and you're like, man, what am I doing? Like, I have so much to offer the game. And did he get his body in great shape? Was he partying? Having a rap career is a lot of smoking and drinking and late night in the studio booth. Or, did he kind of pull away from all that? Was he not even doing that? I don't know. I said he battled with addiction, so maybe that wasn't even kind of the environment he was in. All I'm saying is he took some time away from football, and when that happens, you never know what you're going to get when he steps back on the football field. But if he is anything like what he was, Darren Waller could be the piece that takes the Miami Dolphins offense and elevates it to where we're used to seeing it. The Dolphins have been struggling all season. They haven't been able to sustain drives. Mostly they've been dealing with offensive line struggles. Waller could give to another viable short area option. So, we talk about receivers not getting open. Assuming he stays healthy, Darren Waller's immediately tight end 2, right? Until proven otherwise. So I'm talking tier 2, right? Tight end 2, not like number 2 in the NFL. So big news for the Miami Dolphins, fantasy football. We got D-Rock in the chat. Chucky is wild. No more iced coffee. Definitely see his best Chucky the doll possessed looking ass. I love it. I love it. All right. Look at that. Hey, by the way, if you guys have fantasy football questions, put them in the comments. If I don't see it right away, I will see it. And D-Rock, God, I missed all of these comments. Sorry, I was being possessed by John Gruden. But let me hit this one. JB 997. He said start Benson, DK, or Warren. I'm going with okay, so we got 2 Pittsburgh Steelers and we got Benson, who, by the way, I love Benson. Right, Trey Benson was my favorite running back in the draft last year. But it's hard for me to steer away from DK Metcalf. The Pittsburgh running game hasn't been very good. It just hasn't. They haven't been able to really run the ball effectively, which is weird because that's their MO. But Aaron Rodgers clearly is going to throw a ball to DK Metcalf every time he gets into the red zone. And I think anytime you got a player that's like guaranteed red zone targets, right? Because that's the big thing about fantasy football is you can have a player that, he's just an amazing player, but for whatever reason, he doesn't get targeted in the red zone. Or there's a lot of receivers that we see, like Amon-Ra St. Brown, or he's not one, but a receiver like him that is like 3rd on his team in red zone targets because they would rather go to Sam Laporta or, a bigger bodied receiver like DK Metcalf. So DK Metcalf's the number 1 red zone target for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm hoping you're in a scenario based on, going running back. Obviously you're talking about flex. So yeah, if I could flex DK Metcalf, I think it's a no-brainer above the other 2. But in a couple weeks, I think Trey Benson could be a set and forget type of player. So I'd keep my eye on that. And Warren, man, we know he's capable of it, but this just hasn't been his best year. Hopefully that, it's only been 3 weeks. So hopefully, what we've seen so far doesn't define this whole year. All right. The New England Patriots emerged from their Week 3 loss to the Steelers, absent any key injuries. So the Steelers are good, healthy, good to go. But that doesn't mean we don't have anything to talk about with the Pittsburgh or with the Patriots because their running back, Ramondre Stevenson, It took 3 fumbles for them to give Trayvon Henderson the nod to come into the game. And I don't know what it's going to look like this week, right? And this is part of just how's Vrabel going to handle this, right? You got a guy now that has like what I think 8 fumbles since 2024 or something like that. I saw the stat. I can't remember the stat, but I remember the context of the stat is that Ramondre Stevenson has been fumbling the football, and 2 of his fumbles came inside the 10-yard line, right? The Patriots win these games probably, or at least the last one, if he doesn't fumble the football. So I don't know how this is going to be handled, but potentially, if he's still in the doghouse, Trayvon Henderson, his fantasy value jumps. We got the Jets and Justin Fields. He was out because of a concussion. Suffered a concussion late in the team's week 2 loss to the Bills. Now he remains in the concussion protocol as of Tuesday. Tyrod Taylor played pretty well for the Jets, prompting some questions from the media as to who the starter will be when Fields returns. Aaron Glenn was non-committal. Okay. So look, I don't think just because somebody comes in and has a good game automatically means that we're going to see Justin Fields not start, right? His job is taken away by Tyrod Taylor. I don't really think that's the case. I think that's more of the media just trying to create a story. Like, hey, what would it take? Like, is there something Tyrod Taylor could do that he would just play so good that you had no choice? You had to bench Justin Fields. It's like when you are asking that kind of a question, it's like, okay, so you want to talk about, hypotheticals. I don't want to talk about hypotheticals. Coaches don't like hypothetical questions because hypothetical questions, they're not real. And it's the same thing when a girlfriend's like, if I died, would you, how long would it take for you to remarry? Would you remarry? It's like hypothetical questions are never a good idea. Okay. Now I think it's important to sit down and be like, I want to give you my blessing to, continue dating or fall in love again with somebody else if something happens to me. I worked with a lot of older people that are like, I just wish I would have gotten permission or the blessing, not permission, a blessing. And I never got it. So I don't think all hypotheticals are bad, but when you tee up a hypothetical question where if you answer this way, you're wrong, and if you answer this way, you're wrong, then you're just mean, right? And I think a lot of reporters kind of tee up these hypothetical questions. And Joe Flacco said it better than anybody this offseason. He said, if I say that I don't want to mentor him, then you guys say I'm a terrible person. If I say I'm going to do everything I can to mentor him, you guys are going to think I don't take my job seriously. So yeah, the media does do this. And I honestly, I tip my hat to Aaron Glenn for not really commenting on this stupid question, because what did we see from Justin Fields? Justin Fields is fantasy QB number 1 if he regains the starting role, which I expect him to. And I thought the Jets looked really good with Justin Fields. Go back and watch the Pittsburgh Steelers game. That is the best version of Justin Fields I've ever seen. So no, Tyrod Taylor doesn't just win the job because their special teams made a huge play and returned a punt or blocked a field goal and found a way to battle against Tampa Bay, which, by the way, I had the Jets winning that game, and it had nothing to do with Tyrod Taylor. It was just a really bad spot for Tampa on a short week playing a winless opponent. Remember, they were in the same situation last year when Denver came into Tampa. Tampa had just played Detroit in Detroit, beat the brakes off of the Lions. They were undefeated. And then Denver came in after losing to Seattle and losing to Pittsburgh. They were 0-2. They flew in to Florida and they beat the piss out of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I thought, this is who Tampa is, man. They win a couple and then they lose a disappointing game, and it just had all of the right stuff for an upset. It had nothing to do with Tyrod Taylor. It was always going to be the Jets. Unfortunately, they couldn't pull it off at the end, but they had an opportunity to do it. And I don't think it has so much to do with Tyrod Taylor, but it has to do with coaching, and it just has to do with the NFL. And there's that feeling again. I'm sure there's a lot of data somewhere that backs this up, but the Jets were the team last week for sure. I took the points. All right, let's go to the AFC North. Baltimore Ravens. Isaiah Likely, all right, now has missed the first 3 games of the season. He's tending to a foot injury, and his week 4 status remains uncertain. John Harbaugh said he hopes Likely plays on Sunday. Hope. I'm sure he hoped he played, last week and the week before, and I'm sure he hoped that he would play the opening game. All right, so that probably is one of the most useless words a head coach could use when talking about the potential availability of any player. I hope is like what? Hope in one hand and shit in the other. See what fills up first, right? I don't know. Is he going to play? That's the real question. Is it more likely that he plays this week than it was that he was going to suit up on Monday night? I mean, as a reporter, you got to word the questions like this so that way you can't just go, yeah, I hope he plays, because that doesn't help. It doesn't help. Likely is worth stashing on benches, but he continues to be overvalued in fantasy circles because Mark Andrews is healthy and he broke out in week 3. And we talked about this. He had 6 catches, 91 yards, 2 touchdowns. And we were talking about him dropping the ball, the 2-point conversion in the playoff game, and how he was going to need to have a big game to get out of the doghouse with Baltimore Raven fans. It did help that Lamar Jackson, after that game, kind of went to bat. And I didn't think he got enough credit for this, Lamar Jackson, the way he handled the Mark Andrews situation after the game. But he came out and said one player doesn't lose the game. And it was true. Lamar had a strip sack fumble that was like almost returned for a touchdown by Von Miller. I think it went to like the 20-yard line. They scored. So, I mean, yeah, Mark Andrews had the type of game where he is a Baltimore Raven. And remember, he's on a contract year. So not only is it like he needs to have a big year to get back in the good graces of the fans, but he wants to have a big year so he can get one more big contract, kind of cash in one more time, because he is getting a little bit older. And then we got Joe Burrow, and Joe Burrow, when he was being carried off the field, I was one of the voices that said, don't panic. Don't just assume he's done for the season, right? He suffered a grade 3 turf toe injury. Do you guys know what turf toe is? Like, what is turf toe? Because I hear about it all the time. I'm not sure what turf toe is. What is turf toe? Let's see if we can Google it. What is turf toe? All right, here we go. What is turf toe?
Hi, this is Dr. Dave Petron from the University of Utah Orthopedic Center. Turf toe is a common term used to describe a sprain of the ligaments of the big toe, usually a result of jamming the toe or repeatedly pushing off the big toe forcefully, as in running and in jumping. Symptoms include pain, swelling, and limited joint movement. Generally, it develops slowly and will gradually get worse if not treated appropriately. Recovery time takes usually about 3 to 4 weeks. Treatment includes a combination of rest, ice, compression, and elevation. The best approach is to give the injury plenty of time to heal and protect the injury from further damage by wearing a stiff-soled shoe.
All right. So, turf toe, in its simplest form, is the sprain of the first joint. So, in some cases, you can fracture that toe. You got sesamoid bones, and yeah, basically, the big toe is forced into uh, hyperextension. So when the big toe is forced into hyperextension, the ligament that it's attached to, it can break completely. And in Burrow's case, it did, and that's why he had to have surgery, and he's likely to miss the next 3 months because of it. But yeah, I didn't really know what turf toe was. I mean, I had an idea that was the, you know, I knew I was in the ballpark. Like, I'm not shocked. I thought it was like a sprain, but for the toe, kind of. And for lack of better words, it is. And Crafty said it's when the toe gets stuck in the turf and twisted. And and then Crafty said Kyle streaming on 2 channels simultaneously, double dip. Hell yeah, brother. Hell yeah, brother. And then super painful. And Ginger said cross country runner said she puked when she had it. Oh my gosh. I hate the fact he's not playing. I did too, man, because I was at the game in week 17 when the Broncos needed 1 win to get into the playoffs, and the Bengals needed 1 win to stay alive in the playoff hunt. So this was a playoff atmosphere, and oh my goodness, was it fun, man. I had a great time. It was the best football game I've ever been to, and we lost. So that just tells you how much fun it was. Joe Burrow is by far, in my opinion, one of the greatest quarterbacks in the NFL, if not the best. When you watch him live, you can gain a entirely new respect for how great he is. I mean, I felt the same way when I saw Aaron Rodgers live. When you see these quarterbacks live, it's different. It really is. It's like seeing, I don't know, you can appreciate it so much more. It's just different. And by the way, like, I saw Aaron Rodgers throw a perfect ball. I remember when it was week 17, the Packers played the Vikings. It wasn't Aaron Rodgers' last game as a Packer because that was against the Lions. But the year before that, the Packers were going to the playoffs. I believe they lost to the 49ers this year. I think it was 2021. Rodgers won the MVP that year. And Rodgers and the Packers offense was awesome. And I saw him throw a ball to Davante Adams. And it was like, he fakes the handoff. He kind of rolled out to his right, and he just like flicks his wrist, and the ball travels like 35 yards on a dart right between the linebacker or the corner and the safety in this perfect little pocket that just opened up. The anticipation on the throw was insane. Like, the wide receiver hadn't even turned where Aaron Rodgers had thrown the ball already. And seeing it all live was like, I don't know. I don't even know how to. It's like seeing an artist, paint a masterpiece. I don't know if you've ever seen one of those where an artist, I've seen them in like my churches before, where they'll play a song and then an artist comes out, and by the end of the worship song, there's a painting, and it's a beautiful painting. And then a lot of times they'll auction it off, and then proceeds to go to some, charity event that they're doing. But seeing somebody paint a picture in front of your eyes, kind of like that guy, what's the artist? Me and Ginger were just talking about him with the afro. I have I can't believe I'm blanking on his name, but like when you watch him paint, it's just beautiful. Anyway, these quarterbacks that are just amazing at what they do, go watch them live. Seriously, like if you're not even a Titans fan or wherever you live, but a top NFL quarterback's coming into your town, go watch it. Go check it out. It looks so much cooler in real life. And Daniel Jones looked really good. That's how I know he's actually really good this year. Is like I saw him live, dude, and it looked like really, really good. Because one of the things that when you were watching Burrow play, it was like no matter how good the defense was, no matter how good the pass rush was, he was always one step ahead of it. And that's how it felt watching Daniel Jones play. And I can't believe I'm saying it, but it's true. That is how it felt watching Daniel Jones play. All right, we got trade Rome for Puka. Oh, I wouldn't. Puka's got injury. Puka's got injury history, right? He's got a history of knee injuries, suffering a bursa sack in training camp in 2024. Then he re-aggravated during week 1 in 2024, resulting in a posterior ligament sprain. And then he was on IR. And then he experienced a separate knee issue late in October, but it wasn't believed to be serious. And then most recently, he sustained a cut on his head in a possible concussion in week 1 against the Houston Texans, but he returned to the game after being evaluated. I would do it. Look, it's definitely a tough one because I'm actually higher on Rome than most people. For the last 2 weeks, I've taken the over on Rome Odunze's yards and touchdowns, and I've won both weeks. And if you haven't been watching Bears games, like one thing is perfectly clear. Rome Odunze is Caleb's number 1 target. It's not DJ Moore. It's Rome, especially in the red zone. And this is where fantasy football really, it's all about red zone targets. All right. That's a huge part of it. Right. And that's his favorite red zone target. So like, Puka Nacua is like a top 5 wide receiver though. So I feel like if I had Puka Nacua, would I accept this trade? No, I wouldn't. And I understand the injury history and the risk, but I drafted CMC this year and everybody was like, but the injuries. And it's like, yeah, but you have to take some risks to win fantasy football. And I thought, look, if I can sit here at 6th overall and Christian McCaffrey's on the board, I have to take him. I always say you can't win your fantasy football league in the first round, but you can lose it. And part of that is drafting somebody and he doesn't play or he gets injured. So it is a big risk. But when Puka Nacua is healthy, is there anybody that you would rather have? Week 1, look, I think I wrote down his stats here after week 1. Hold on. Texans. Puka had his 5th 100-yard game week 1. The Rams are 7-2 in season openers. But yeah, he had his 5th 100-yard game. Devontae Adams has a good connection, which is I think only helps Puka because they can't just focus on Puka. They also have to account for Devontae Adams. And maybe Devontae Adams even gives them more than they had with Cooper Kupp. Just talking about last year to this year. So I think if I had Puka Nacua, I would hold him. I wouldn't do that trade. But also, if I had Rome Odunze, I think I would try it. I would offer the trade. Here, I'll give you Rome, you give me Puka. But if they said no, then I wouldn't feel bad about it, because I think Rome Odunze has the potential to even finish higher than Puka, especially if Puka can't stay healthy. Okay. We got T Money in the chat. He said flex PPR, DJ Moore, Devontae Smith, or Godwin. Okay. This is a good one. On one hand, the Philadelphia Eagles offense came to life. And if that was the spark that is going to kind of kickstart this whole season, or was that a one-offer? Well, we don't really know yet. We got the Eagles playing. Who do we got the Eagles playing this week? We got Eagles playing. Who are the Eagles playing? Here we go. Tampa Bay. Ooh. Okay, DJ Moore. I'm not really feeling DJ Moore right now. He's a really talented guy, but it just hasn't been there. And then we got Godwin. Now, this would be Godwin's. Would this be his first game back? Let me see, because I'm going over my fantasy news, but I haven't gotten to the NFC South yet. And Chris Godwin, you practice full on Wednesday. He's a full participant, and he is on track to make his 2025 debut. The veteran wide receiver theoretically could step into a full-time role, but it would be unsurprising to see him limited in some snap count. I think I would hold off on starting him right out of the gate, especially with how good Emeka Egbuka is looking. But then you got to keep in mind that they might not be able to put him on the pitch count they want to, with the injury, Mike Evans re-aggravating that hamstring. So you're basically looking at this one game, Tampa Bay playing Philly, saying, do you go Chris Godwin or Devontae Adams or Devontae Smith? And I would, because of the Mike Evans injury, I would go Chris Godwin probably. But that's a tough one. Like that's definitely a good one. And then you got the Bears. Let me see. Let me pull something up really quick. Let me see where they have him. I'm going to go wide receiver ranking week 4. Let me just see, if I'm far off here. Puka Nacua is considered the number 1 wide receiver this week, by the way, to the gentleman earlier that asked me if he would trade Puka Nacua for Rome Odunze, and I said no. Wow, JSN at number 2. I find that shocking. Okay, Amon-Ra St. Brown at 3. Justin Jefferson at 4. Nico Collins, Jamar Chase, Malik Neighbors, Devontae Adams, Garrett Wilson, Drake London, Rome Odunze. So right in the top 10. Then you got AJ Brown. Okay. Then you got Zay Flowers, George Pickens, Emeka Egbuka, T-Mac, Ladd McConkey, Cortland Sutton, Ricky Pearsall. I feel like Ricky Pearsall just continues to be underrated. I mean, I traded Mike Evans because I was like, before week 1 even happened, I traded Mike Evans and said Ricky Pearsall is going to be my wide receiver number 2 this year. And he's been amazing. Okay, then you get Tyreek Hill, Brian Thomas Jr., Deebo Samuel, Jameson Winston, Keenan Allen, Marvin Harrison Jr., Jacoby Myers, DK Metcalf, Quentin Johnston, Devontae Smith. So Devontae Smith comes in at 29. And then wow. Godwin. Where are you? Chris Godwin at 93. Chris Godwin's all the way down at 93. Okay. So look, if I was torn, I'm gonna be real with you. Okay. I don't look at projections because they're wrong. I got a D in my fantasy football draft grade. They gave me a D. I'm number 1. I'm in a 12-man league. I'm the only undefeated team. I scored 160 plus points last week. I have a great team. Okay. I don't really care about projections, but however, when I'm torn like I am between Chris Godwin and Devontae Smith, I will look at the projections. And if I see Devontae Smith is ranked 29th and Chris Godwin's 93, I'm going with the guy at 29. All right. So I'm going Devontae Smith in this case. I hope that. And TS said, I would never trade away Puka. I have Puka and Devon Achane. Damn. Yeah, dude. I would never trade away Puka as well. And then Achane is like the one bright spot right now on that Dolphins. And especially in a PPR league, that dude is, I mean, you're kind of hoping the receivers never get any separation because Tua's just throwing it to Devon Achane, 7 to 10 to 12 times a game for 1 to 2 yards. But that's a point. That's a point. That's a point. So we got Ginger, then Buckeye boys taking over the league at wideout. Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are. Godwin is not really ranked yet because today was his first practice. Yeah, that's fair. But he should still be, I mean, if he's starting, he's predicted to make his debut. So, the rankings should reflect that, in my opinion. Let me look at one more. Let me pull up one more. I'm going to go to Bleacher Report. Puka Nacua, number 1. Again. And Puka Nacua, man, he was somebody that you could draft in the 3rd or late in the 2nd, right? You didn't have to draft him in the top 12. TS, did Puka Nacua? Be honest, player drafted what overall? Because I feel like the people that drafted Puka are going to win their fantasy football league because it's not about who you draft in the first round. It's about the value, right? I drafted Ricky Pearsall in the 7th or 8th round, and I knew I was going to start him this year. Matter of fact, I drafted I'm going to tell you what I did because I live streamed my draft. I had CMC at 6 overall. When it came back, I got Jonathan Taylor. Okay, I'm in a 12-person league. So Jonathan Taylor was available when it came back to me. Then it went that way. Then when it came back to me again, that's when I drafted, I believe, Mike Evans. Let me pull up. Let me pull it up really quick because I want to make a point, fantasy football point, really quick. Okay. So, yeah, it is pretty obvious based on my team that's who I drafted. So I drafted Mike Evans, and I wasn't going to start Mike Evans this year. I was just like, this guy shouldn't be available, right? At this point, it was, and I wonder if I go to, I think if I click on the player, Mike Evans, doubtful, I can see where he was drafted, right? History. Yeah. Okay, feeling nicey. Drafted 42nd overall in the 4th round. So he was drafted in the 4th round by me. Okay. So that wasn't my third round pick. So my 3rd round pick must have been Terry McLaurin. history. Yeah, drafted in the 3rd round with the 7th pick. So I went Christian McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, Terry McLaurin, and when it came back, Mike Evans was on the board, and I went, okay, this is a guy I'm going to draft just to trade, because I already knew that the 2 guys I wanted to start at wide receiver were Xavier Worthy and Ricky Pearsall. I felt like Ricky Pearsall was going to have a big year. So I didn't need to draft you get like those 2 quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, people draft them in the 3rd round. Okay. So instead of drafting Lamar Jackson in the 3rd round because he wasn't available when I was, I had picked Terry McLaurin. Then I had in the 4th round, I drafted Mike Evans, but really I was drafting Lamar Jackson because after I was able to fill up my bench with, Xavier Worthy, Travis Hunter, TJ Hawkinson, and Ricky Pearsall, like I said, I was like, okay, Ricky Pearsall is going to be my starter. I went and found a team that had Lamar Jackson, and lo and behold, he was missing a star player because when you draft Lamar Jackson, you're usually missing like one big receiver because you went quarterback early. So I found that team, and I got Jordan Love and Mike Evans. I put them together for Lamar Jackson. And that trade, I checked every fantasy football trade value calculator. Every single calculator said I was making the wrong deal. They were like, I know Lamar is great, but that's a lot to give up for one player. And I was even comfortable with throwing Travis Hunter in the mix. And I still have yet to start him. So it didn't matter. And I did all of that because I knew Ricky Pearsall was going to be a guy. And now Ricky Pearsall had got me 15 points week 1. Yeah, not a great week 2, but then he got me 20 points last week. But look at this. He's got 11 targets last week. He's got 7 targets, 6 targets week 2. Even the game when he had only 9 fantasy points, he still had 6 targets. He's got a floor of 4 catches. Week 1 and week 2, he had 4 catches, but week 1, he had 108 yards. Week 3, he had 117 yards. So this is a guy that has been amazing, and he actually leads the NFL in contested grabs. And let me see what the advice says. Pearsall's played 97% of the snaps for the Cardinals against the Cardinals this past Sunday, catching 8 of 11 targets for 117 yards. He's now 3rd in the NFL in both receiving yards and air yards, having caught 4 of 7 targets of 20 yards plus downfield. There's 7 targets of 20 plus yards downfield. There's some chance the usage declines if Jawan Jennings now ends up healthier than Pearsall, but Jennings will also miss Wednesday's practice. I'm not worried about any of that. So Ricky Pearsall is 3rd in the NFL right now for receivers. So I got Lamar Jackson, Ricky Pearsall, Christian McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor is number 1. TJ Hawkinson's been a disappointment. He really has. And Terry McLaurin has also been a disappointment. But Lamar Jackson, Ricky Pearsall, CMC, and Jonathan Taylor have been carrying my team. And I also got Tyler Bass on IR. I just saw that my waiver cleared. I picked him up because whenever he does come back, he's one of the best kickers in the NFL because the Bills, they score a shit ton of points. And then Xavier Worthy, I think I'm going to be flexing Xavier Worthy. Something is telling me this week to flex Troy Franklin. Denver is playing on Monday Night Football against the Bengals, and Sean Payton likes to air it out and show off his genius young quarterback when he's on primetime. And, just 1 week ago, he had 9 targets, 8 catches, 89 yards, a touchdown, and add 1 rush for 11 yards. Troy Franklin's a guy that I kind of like this week. And look, he had 2 points last week, right? 4 targets, 2 catches, 8 yards. I get the hesitation. I get the hesitation. But if you're a guy that is looking at your roster and it's like you got Travis Hunter, Dotavion Wicks, you're in that tier in deeper leagues and you need somebody to kind of hope, a little bit of hoping, right? That can get you a big week. Troy Franklin's somebody that I would feel okay with that gamble. I also love my gamble player playing on Monday night because it's like, it's just nice having one player left. So if you're down like 18 points and he has no more players left and you're like, I got Troy Franklin, it makes that whole Monday even more fun, right? Because you still have a chance of winning this week. So look, I have Xavier Worthy. So Xavier Worthy is going to be my flex. And you know what? I might not do that because, like I said, I try not to get blinded by the projections. And just being completely honest, it's hard when Xavier Worthy's projected 13 points and Troy Franklin's projected 8. But this is going to be one of those times where I'm like, I don't know. I mean, Xavier Worthy going against Baltimore. Baltimore can score a lot of points. Xavier Worthy in a shootout. But this is one of those where for right now, I'm going to stick with Troy Franklin Monday Night Football because I know he's going to catch a 50-yard touchdown. This is what I can see it. Just like the Cleveland game, just like the last Monday night game against Cincinnati, there's going to be a deep ball, and it's going to be to Troy Franklin. So I'm going to stick to my guns there. And I'm projected with Troy Franklin. And let me show you. You can see it. Share screen. Here you go. So this is my team. Right? Hurry up. All right. Feeling nicey. Obviously, you guys know what that's from now. Right? All right. So Lamar Jackson, but this is what I wanted to show you. So here's my lineup. Okay. This shit doesn't move so freaking slow. So I feel like it's going at dinosaur pace right now. Get out of here. Delete, 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 delete. All right. It should be a little bit better. Should be pretty quick now. All right. All right. So here's my league. Here's the standings. This is my brother. And this is who traded Lamar Jackson to me for Mike Evans. I feel terrible. But in all honesty, he felt like I was the idiot when we did this trade. Here's Jordan Love. Here's Mike Evans. So I gave him 2 starters. Overall, he's got T. Higgins. He's got Saquon Barkley. He thought, Travis Kelce was going to have a big game. He's flexing Devontae Smith and Pacheco. Pacheco just isn't having a great season, to be honest. And then Loveland and Golden, 2 rookies that have been kind of disappointing if you were relying on them. But here's Trey Benson. And Trey Benson, 8 points, 8 points, 8 points. But look at his attempts, right? At least he's up to 10 attempts here, and you're seeing 6 and 4. He's becoming a reliable pass catcher. And if you're being honest and you look at this, I mean, look, if he gets in the end zone on one of these games, all of a sudden we're talking about a guy that's like closer to 14, 15. And it hasn't happened yet, but the usage is something that I'm looking at. Okay. And I know somebody asked me earlier about him. Let me see. This is the advice as of 8:10 a.m. I'm fully confident in Trey Benson. I really am. This is Rich Gannon, Jonathan Gannon, the head coach for the Cardinals. He told reporters about the Arizona backfield following James Conner's season-ending injury. I forgot about the injury. Listen. If you have Trey Benson, start him immediately. There is no scenario where Trey Benson should be on your bench. He is the running back now. You got a starting running back. All right? I would have him as an RB2 in this scenario. Like, if this was my team, Trey Benson, Pacheco, let's see. What has Pacheco done? 4.35? Not good enough. The offense as a whole hasn't been. Travis Kelce at tight end, you got to ride that one out. Devontae Smith, you're hoping that something sparked. 20 points. Look at this. 9 targets, 8 catches, 60 yards, a touchdown. You're hoping he can keep doing that. But definitely take Pacheco out. Throw Trey Benson in. Then you got Barkley, Benson, Kelce, Devontae Smith. Now you got something you can feel good about. T. Higgins, you like that. Jordan Love, you love that. And then obviously you got Mike Evans dealing with an injury, and you need a wide receiver. So what would you do? Well, let's go ahead and look at wide receivers available in my league. All right, you got Christian Kirk for the Houston Texans. You got Romeo Doubs, Josh Downs, somebody that I looked at. Honestly, Christian Kirk, he's got 0. He's got 8 targets, right? Keep in mind, look, he didn't play week 1 and week 2. He made his season debut, and he finished tied for 3rd in receptions on another relatively difficult day for the Texans passing game. All right. He was projected to serve as an effective short to mid-range complement to Nico Collins coming into the season. Now that Kirk is finally healthy, he has a chance to start building chemistry with CJ Stroud. Honestly, this is a person that I would start if I were in his shoes. But I'm going to take him. So I feel kind of bad because, like I said, it's my brother, but I've seen everything I need to see from Dylan Sampson, right? They are not going to be going with him. That was more of an early season optimism kind of a thing. So I'm going to see if I can add him, because part of doing this is taking good players from other teams. And I've successfully added, I've added him. Christian Kirk is added. Matter of fact, I'm going to do this. Boom. Christian Kirk, right? Xavier Worthy got 12 points, but Christian Kirk going against Tennessee. Don't love that matchup. Part of me wants to go Xavier Worthy. We'll see how I feel. I also need a tight end. And I'm telling you, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm definitely doing this. I continue to forget to put Kincaid in, and TJ Hawkinson just hasn't been doing it. We saw Kincaid nearly had 2 touchdowns in the first quarter of Monday Night Football. Or was that Thursday Night Football? Yes. One of them was just outside of his hands, but you're getting those touchdown targets. And yeah, I think Xavier Worthy, if he's healthy, what would you guys do with this? I mean, if you needed a flex between Christian Kirk, Xavier Worthy, and also Calvin Austin. I picked up Calvin Austin because what I've noticed is like 6 targets, 4 targets, 5 targets. Like Calvin Austin has kind of turned into the number 2 receiver for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And when Aaron Rodgers has a good connection with you, you know, there's a trust there. Like when a new quarterback comes onto a team, he's trying to figure out, like, who can I trust? And Calvin Austin has been that guy. 15 targets on the season, only 3 weeks into the season, two touchdowns. You know, he's I feel like he's a very safe option, right? I feel like Xavier Worthy and what's his name, Troy Franklin, I feel like they are high risk, high reward type players, where Calvin Austin maybe doesn't get you the same ceiling, but he brings you some stability. He will get you 10 points. He may not get you 11, but he's not going to get you 4 or 5 either, which is what Troy Franklin got me last week. I love what I've been seeing from Datavian Wicks, specifically after the Commanders game is when I added him, because he had 6 targets in that game and he made a lot of really impressive catches. And then with the injury, with what's his name? Broke his collarbone. I can't believe I'm blanking on his name. Whatever. When he got injured, I thought, let me see. It's probably in the news here. They must have brought it up. On the most shoulder. Here it is. Jayden Reed. Thank you. So yeah, Jayden Reed was out, and I thought to myself, all right, Wicks was coming off a big game. Reed's out. But he's somebody that I just like stashed on my bench, and I'm just waiting to see if he does break out. And then Green Bay's defense, guys, I got this defense off of waivers. So I added him on the 10th of September. And man, it's been pretty great. They've only allowed 44 points on the season. And, the one thing I like about ESPN relative, related to fantasy, the way Yahoo does it versus ESPN, ESPN will tell you, in all of defenses where the Green Bay Packers are ranked, right? So they give you all this data, but on ESPN, it would say Green Bay Packers 4th, meaning they're the 4th. They've gotten the 4th most points of any defense this year. I just appreciate that because ESPN doesn't really do that with any of their players. They'll give. Let me see. Forecast, projected 20 points. They give you a lot of good information, but they don't really give you where he, is at relative to the other players in the league and how many points he's gotten. But how many points am I projected this week? Let's see. Let's look at the league matchups. And feeling nicey. I'm projected 127 points, and he's projected 114. Lamar Jackson against Kyler Murray. Terry McLaurin against Marvin Harrison Jr. Honestly, I might go. I'm just sick of Terry McLaurin. If you guys haven't been keeping up with this, look at this. 2 freaking targets, 4 targets, 9 targets. That's great and all, but 5 catches for 48 yards, 4 catches, 4 targets for 3 catches for 74 yards. This was the closest thing to, I was okay, we're going in the right direction at least, but this wasn't even with Jaden Daniels. Now, let me see what the advice is here for all of you with Terry McLaurin. We already knew that McLaurin was seeking a second opinion after suffering a leg injury against the Raiders in week 3, but meeting with a core muscle specialist was a bit surprising. Groin injuries often fall into the core muscle category, and Myers recently performed surgery on Bears cornerback Jalen Johnson, who suffered a groin injury in week 2 that sidelined him indefinitely. McLaurin's injury has been reported as a quad issue. The 2 muscle groups obviously neighbor each other, so this could be precautionary. It's worth noting that the injury could be more complex than initial reports indicated, though. As expected, McLaurin was held out of Wednesday's practice. He's unlikely to suit up this week, and the meeting with Dr. Myers should have fantasy managers concerned about his availability in the next couple weeks. And even if he was perfectly healthy, we're concerned about him. So I don't know, man. I feel like this is one of those weeks where if I start him, I'm going to end up getting burned. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a big decision here, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bench this fool. I'm going to bench him. And I talked about that consistency. I'm going to bench him for Calvin Austin. Right? It's not exciting, but he's proven to be, more reliable than Terry McLaurin, which is crazy. But there is a huge part of me that wants to put in Christian Kirk or Troy Franklin. You know what? Mother F it. I'm doing it. All right. I got a feeling that Troy Franklin's due for a big week on Monday Night Football, and I ain't going to ignore it. I'm not ignoring it. Right? That's what's great about fantasy football, is that sometimes all you have is a feeling and that's it. And sometimes a feeling is enough. And right now, I found myself in first place in my, the only undefeated team. Most points in out of anybody. And hell, maybe I should trust my gut, Maybe my gut's not that off. I'm only projected 124 now. But this guy's projected 100 and... Jeez. George Pickens? George Pickens hasn't gotten 20 points once this season. Now he's projected 20? He hasn't even done that yet. I feel like that is that's kind of an interesting projection, don't you guys think? Going against Green Bay? I don't know, Chuck. I don't know. Ashton Genty. This is a guy that people were drafting in the first round. Like Genty, 5th, 6th, 7th. Let's see. Where was he drafted? 9th pick. All right. You talk about how you can lose. He had the 9th pick. This is his first round draft pick. Genty. That's crazy. How did Genty go over Jacobs? Jacobs, 2nd round, 4th pick. 2nd round, 4th pick. And look at Jacobs. I bet his points, 14, 12, very consistent. No touchdown last week, which was kind of sad, right? If you've been tracking the Packers, there was something here with Josh Jacobs. I believe I wrote it down somewhere where Josh Jacobs, like the most, I think it was like 7 games in a row with a touchdown, which was tying a franchise record or something along the lines, where Josh Jacobs had so many games in a row with a touchdown. Packers win 13th straight season opener. By the way, the Packers have won their 13th straight season opener, which means if they win next year, then they will tie the record that the Miami Dolphins had from 1980 something to 1990 something, a really long record. Man, and I'm like, where did all of my stats go? Who cares? Josh Jacobs had a lot of touchdowns in a row every game, and finally doesn't get one against Cleveland in a weird 10-13 loss. But more importantly, Josh Jacobs is limited with an ankle. Now, he practiced in a limited capacity, which is good news. And look, anytime you have a player that practices or is limited in practice, he becomes questionable by default. But this could just be them, nursing an ankle. All right, his ankle not feeling 100%. Put him on the report, but he's probably fine. Right. The Packers, who also kept Jacobs practice reps last week, but didn't tag him with the designation prior to this past Sunday's game at Cleveland. So he may be destined for a similar fate at the end of week 4. Okay, so they capped his practice reps last week, but didn't tag him with a designation prior to the game. So, yeah, that's what I pretty much thought. They're just, just taking care of a veteran player, right? A lot of veterans too, like Christian McCaffrey. I remember week 1, he was limited in practice, and there were like doctors on freaking YouTube going, oh, it's this tendon, and what we've seen with this age is that, and they make a huge thing when sometimes it's just veteran preference, right? Veterans get like CMC, or hey, we're going to limit you on Thursday. You know how to take care of your body. You're going to be in the building, in the hot tub, the cold chamber, the hyperbolic chamber, getting massages. You're doing stuff like that. You're not in your 20s on the field in pads, running around. And, when you're as good as Christian McCaffrey, it's like, as a coach, it's like, dude, whatever you have to do to stay healthy and be available when it's time to play, that's what we're going to do. And when that player comes back and says that I need to be limited, then players get limited all the time for that type of reason. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with them at all. Sometimes they just say their ankle's hurting so they can have something officially on the record. But let's see. We got Ginger in here. Kyle found his home. Love you, Tyler. Well, let me see. Hold on. Okay. So we got Ginger, Taylor, second pick, even better. Dude, yeah. We got Hunter, 18. Would you trade Jordan Mason for Montgomery? Oh, would I trade Jordan Mason for Montgomery? That's tough because Jordan Mason was somebody that I had queued up and I wanted to draft him in the 6th or 7th round. And, sometimes you get a little cocky, and by cocky, I mean, you value a player like, hey, at the end of the year, I think that Jordan Mason's going to be a top 10 running back. But he's a guy that's going to be drafted in the 7th or 8th round, and you don't want to necessarily like draft him in the 2nd round. So you just like kind of sit back and you push it a little too long, and that player gets drafted right and gets taken right from you. And you're like, damn it. You're like, why did I get cute? If this is a guy that's going to finish top 10, then who cares if I draft him in the 6th round instead of the 7th? Like, it was like all the people saying Sean could have moved back in the 1st round. It's like, if your franchise quarterback's on the board, you just draft him. You don't get cute and try to get an extra 3rd round pick or whatever, and risk losing him. The Raiders would have drafted him right after us. So that's how I try to remember in fantasy. Like, every time you think, hey, I can kind of sit back and take this guy, someone else has got their eye on him and they pull him right from you. And that was my Jordan Mason. But I also love me some David Montgomery. And David Montgomery, look, I would not trade Montgomery. If I had Jordan Mason, I would trade Jordan Mason for Montgomery. Yes, I would. And he said, the thing is, I also have Gibbs. And this is definitely the only situation in the NFL where that's okay. Do I love it? No. Does it? I mean, I don't love it just because it does look strange, right? You're putting all your eggs in one basket. So if a defense stops the run really well, you got, both your running backs. Would I prefer you have one or the other? Yeah. But is it like I'm not going to start one of them? Absolutely freaking not. Right? Like you're taking a risk every single week that whatever running back you flex isn't going to get stopped by a good running defense, or it's not going to be a blowout and they get one dimensional and abandon the run. You're making little gambles every week. Just because they're on the same team doesn't make your gambles any more or any less than anyone else's gambles. So, no, I mean, personally, I wouldn't trade Montgomery. But if you could trade Montgomery for Jordan Mason and maybe throw in something, look at his roster, see if there's anything else that, you can throw in, because the way that I'm reading it is that you have Jordan Mason and you're trying to get Montgomery. All right. So if you're not that and you're Montgomery trying to get Jordan Mason, I wouldn't do that trade. But if you're Montgomery, maybe you could get Mason and then get him to add something else. And then Ginger said Montgomery is a stud hunter. Yeah. And GI is a fantasy beast, though. LOL, that's tough. And Gibbs. And love you, Tyler. Where's Tyler? Oh, because of his fantasy team. Kyle found his home. Fantasy is my boy's niche. I can feel it. It's beautiful to watch, my man. That's awesome. Maybe it is my niche. Maybe I should do some more fantasy football videos. And Jen just said, you immediately raged when you realized you forgot to throw Kincaid in. Oh my God, yeah. And I was live streaming that game, and I'm like, touchdown Kincaid. And it just hit me. Boom. You didn't start him. And I knew it. I had to check just to make sure I was dumb, and I was. Ad Mitchell is sneaky if Alec Pierce doesn't clear concussion protocol. And, well, first off, I don't want to say and as if I knew that. I didn't know that. Thank you, Jinja, for that information. But I was going to say, if anything goes wrong with, Pittman, like, if I'm not mistaken, Pittman's somebody very reliable. He's like the Terry McLaurin of the AFC, I like to say. But if he does face any type of an injury, he's somebody that, we now know that the Colts offense is going to be really good and they're going to score a lot of points. I feel comfortable saying that. So if you could pick up a wide receiver that, if anything happens to, Michael Pittman Jr. and he has to miss some games, now you have the wide receiver one in a high-powered offense, right? I mean, we do this all the time with running backs. Like, oh, let me pick up, Trey Benson, because if James Conner gets hurt, now I have, a 3-down running back with no competition. I think actually I'm going to do that right now. I did not even realize that he hadn't cleared concussion protocol. Pounds. And look, let's see how he's been. So you got 8 targets against Denver. Maybe that's why I'm like, he's pretty good because I watched him. So he's got 14 targets so far. Let's see. Like in comparison, Dobbs has 11. Malik Washington has 12 targets, 17 points, 10 points. He's got only 2 targets, but he's got 5 targets, 3 catches. I think he got 17 points because he returned a touchdown. And let's see, Cedric Tillman. Damn, 8 targets, 7 targets. Kind of had a come down to earth game against Green Bay, but there was no offense in that game. But that was his first game of the season without a touchdown. So he's a number 2 receiver. And, you know, going against Detroit, Detroit's going to score a lot of points. The Browns are going to need to be airing it out. Versus, I mean, Josh Downs, though, going against the Rams. The Colts had a relatively flat target distribution, but Downs still slipped behind each of Michael Pittman, Alec Pierce, and Tyler Warren for opportunities in the passing game. Yeah, I mean, Alec Pierce and Tyler Warren are still, I guess, I would say Tyler Warren's probably like, he could turn into the number 1 target on this Colts offense. $53% rostered. A lot of people rostered him on waivers after the Denver game. And because he only had 3 targets, 2 catches, negative 4%, people are starting to drop him, right? Because of one game. All right. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he would be somebody that I would out of the receivers I have, like Calvin Austin, I don't want him over Calvin Austin yet. Terry McLaurin, no. Hawkinson, just picked up Kirk. And Dontayvion Wicks, that's a possibility. And Dontayvion Wicks against Dallas, I don't know. Something tells me that Green Bay's offense is going to be clicking on Sunday Night Football. But I'm not gonna touch it this time. But yeah, I think I'll leave it as is right now. And once again, Christian Kirk, I mean, if he's available, he's only rostered in 34% of leagues, right? And he made his debut and he had 8 targets, right? That is such a beautiful thing to see. First game of the season, he's got 8 targets. All right. Definitely go in and see. I mean, look, even if he's somebody that you're just going to stash on your bench, if he turns in a 20-point game against Tennessee and Houston's offense is starting to roll because Christian Kirk's back, and then they go against Baltimore, he has another 20-point game. You're going to hit the bye week, but then look, Seattle's got the 31st ranked defense. San Francisco, what is this, 29th? And these are passing defenses. All right. He might have some big games coming up. You know, I would just put him there, see what happens. We got Chandler in the chat. He said, Worthy, and it's not even close, dude. Dude is about to get peppered with targets when healthy. Last year, and no Rice down the stretch, he had double-digit games every year. And look, I totally agree. And Chandler, I really hope you're still with us because I appreciate the interaction here. But my concern is that he opted to not have surgery. Okay, I'm wondering what that looks like. Does that mean like if he takes one hard hit, he's going to like be in a blue medical tent or walking back into the locker room to get x-rays? I just don't know. Like, I know he's playing with one of those, it's like a special vest that he's wearing to like keep his collarbone together. Look, this is a violent sport. You're talking about a player like Xavier Worthy who ran what, a 4.3. Didn't he break the record? Like, I think he broke the record. I was there when it happened. I drove to the combine And I remember watching him run the 40 going, holy crap. You could see without even looking at the time that that guy was faster than everybody. When you have a guy running that fast, the nature of the type of hits he's going to take, the collisions, if we're talking just about force equals weight times speed equals what velocity, or I don't know. I can't remember that shit. Not right now, but I know that he's going to have to deal with some hard hits. And until I see him take like a big hit and just pop back up, I'm wondering, like, does Kansas City feel like, okay, if we're going to play you and you're not going to have surgery and we have to monitor this thing we want to use you in a way where we can line you up on third down, and sometimes you'll be a decoy, sometimes you'll be the main target, but we'll have you on sort of a pitch count versus like, hey, if you're good to go, we're going to treat you like you're good to go, and you're going to be playing, 99% of the snaps, and you're going to get 75% of the targets. Now, if that's the case, it's a no-brainer, Xavier Worthy all day. But I just don't know if that's Xavier Worthy. And, I am flexing him. So, we're going to find out together. All right. And we got Carter McElroy in the chat. He said, okay, chat. So he's talking to everybody. Got offered Drake London for Swift. You got offered London for Swift? Oh, deal. Running backs. You got Kyron Williams, Warren, Benson, Swift, and wide receivers. You have Chase Evans, Pittman, Golden. Yes, Carter, this is a fantasy saving move. You got Warren, who's having a bad year. You got Swift, who's having a bad year. I know that because the guy I do this podcast with is a Bears fan, and every time we watch a Bears game, he's like, I'm done with Swift. So I don't even need to pull the numbers up. You got Mike Evans, who just re-aggravated a hamstring. And let's be real. Chris Godwin's coming back from injury. They got Emeka Egbuka. That's the future. Mike Evans, there's a reason they drafted a wide receiver there. Michael Pittman, I love it. Obviously, Jamar Chase, no brainer. Golden hasn't really had the production yet, but I would do this trade immediately, and I would have London starting, Jamar Chase starting, Trey Benson as my RB2, Kyron Williams is my RB1, and then I would be flexing. Pittman. Easy money. And I would feel really good about that roster too. We got Jason. He said, in PPR, would you trade Josh Jacobs for Alvin Kamara and Rashee Rice? God, you know what? I was actually kind of big on Alvin Kamara this year because I did. Look, I'm not going to bore you, but basically what I did was I took last year's teams, all 32, and I put them in alphabetical order, starting with like Atlanta Falcons. I looked up the rushing yards they allowed per game, and I wrote, let's say it was 120. I wrote it down. I did it for every team, and then I went to the top 10 running backs in fantasy, right? Started with the 49ers, CMC. Write CMC on the paper, and I look at 49ers 17 opponents, and for every single opponent, I added the number, right? Obviously, the bigger the number, and we're using last season's data, but still, the bigger the number, the more rushing yards they're giving up. And I used for others, not to get too deep in the weeds, but Alvin Kamara Kamara came back as the running back that was going to face the least amount of resistance. He was going to be able to play weaker running defenses that gave up. We looked at there's like a stuff rate, how fast the running back gets stuffed, how many yards until he has contact. And Alvin Kamara was like favorited in almost all of these statistics. So I thought, Kellen Moore coming over. You saw what Kellen Moore did with Barkley last year. I was pretty high on Kamara, but Josh Jacobs is you just set and forget, right? And I don't know if like I've gotten that way. Now, the only reason this is even being considered right now hasn't had, a crazy amount of success, but I do believe that the Packers offense is only going to get better. And the thing about Matt LaFleur, he is the most balanced offense in the NFL. They are running it 20 to 22 times a game every single week. There are not many running backs out there that are going to get 20 to 25 opportunities a game, right? 18 to 25, whatever. And then once you get on the goal line, it's Josh Jacobs every time. Josh Jacobs, like I said, I believe he had like 13 straight games with the Green Bay Packers with a touchdown. Right now, the stock for Josh Jacobs is really low, but he's still somebody that I consider untouchable. So Rashee Rice, Jason, it really depends on like how desperate you are at wide receiver. If you're in a position where you just don't have any wide receivers and that, then maybe you can justify like, okay, Alvin Kamara, he might get me, 2-3 points less than Josh Jacobs, but at receiver, I'm going to be +5, or something like that. But if you got good receivers, I would say don't get cute. Sometimes I feel like people, I'm not saying you, but sometimes I'm talking about me. Sometimes you just get kind of caught up in the thrill of putting a trade package together. It's like shopping, right? Not every time you go shopping do you really need clothes, right? And it's good sometimes to remind yourself that just because Josh Jacobs has had a very modest 14-point week 1, 14-point week 2, and then last week nobody on Green Bay's offense had a good week, doesn't mean that like Josh Jacobs is not untouchable, because he is. And this is probably, when we look back on the season, going to be his worst 3-game stretch, what we've seen so far. So I personally wouldn't touch Josh Jacobs as far as trading him away. He's an RB1 or an RB2. If he's your RB1, then because you got to set and forget guy. You don't want to risk that. And then Ginger said Pierce, not Pittman. Oh, okay. Alec Pierce with concussions. And it's this week thing if you need a flex. Mitchell may be sneaky. And then we got Suave JP said pick 2 ROS, CMC, Neighbors, and Nico Collins. Wow. Yeah. And who's your other running back? Let me know. And then Jen just said, if Godwin's available, pick him up. I doubt Godwin's available, right? Godwin's probably somebody that everybody drafted because, he had ankle surgery. What is it? Did I say Goodman? Goodwin. Oh, did you say Goodwin? Hold on. Let me see who we're talking about here. Goodwin. I think we're talking about Godman. Hold on. Chris Godwin. Am I spelling his name wrong? Oh, I am. I just spelled Chris wrong. Chris Godwin. Here we go. I'm trying to see if he's available. Where did my fantasy football give me? And player, here we go. Godwin. Marquise Godwin is the only one available. Let me see. Goodman, right? Chris. Why am I confusing these two guys right now? No players found. Okay. Godwin. It's Chris Godwin. It is Godwin, not Goodman. So Chris Godwin is just, that was way harder than it needed to be for me. Okay, so here we go. Warren is RB14. I wouldn't say he's having a bad year. Oh, okay. I mean, it's just everything that I don't have him and I haven't played him yet, but I've watched 2 of the 3 Steelers games, and the critique from the Steelers game has been the same, is that they are struggling to get the running game going. And I know he's their RB1, so he must be making up for a lot of this stuff with pass catches or maybe touchdowns. But yeah, I mean, RB14 is it's not nothing. But you know, I guess I'm kind of spoiled because I'm looking at it through the lens of I have Christian McCaffrey and Jonathan Taylor. So, you know, I wouldn't love having to start Warren every single week. Unless I was flexing him. And then Jen just said, Kyle, you got to dive into fantasy more. I'm down. And I love all the conversations, you know. And then Suave said, trade CMC, Travis Hunter, and Jameson Williams for Neighbors and Nico. Oh, that's your question. Okay. Okay, Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter is kind of a healthy scratch. I mean, I'm not really looking at that. Jameson Williams, that's significant. CMC, and Jameson Williams. You got Neighbors, a lot of uncertainty right now with Jackson Dart. Nico Collins hasn't been great. I wouldn't do it. I would rather have CMC, Travis Hunter, and Jameson Williams than Neighbors and Nico Collins. And honestly, yeah, honestly, it's not even like that hard, I think. I mean, Nico Collins, like, I think he was the most disappointing player in fantasy football week 1. And then what we've seen now through 3 weeks is that the Texans offense just isn't good right now. A lot of it has to do with the offensive line and sending Laramie Tunsil to Washington. But yeah, I mean, I don't feel like trading CMC. You're not even getting a running back. You know, you're not even getting a running back. Now, I understand if you don't have a wide receiver because Travis Hunter is one of your starting wide receivers, that's a problem. Yeah. But I think you could go on waiver and find a better option than Travis Hunter. You know, I mean, I'm looking at my waivers right now, and like I just picked up Christian Kirk, who had his season debut with the Texans, and he had 8 targets already, and he's supposed to be that short intermittent. So, I mean, I would take a look. Romeo Dobbs is rostered in only 33% of leagues. Malik Washington, he's somebody that I continue to see here. I don't know if you guys in your league, if you get points for like punt returns. I believe he had a 17-point game because of a touchdown, because he only had 2 targets, 1 catch, 2 yards, 3 carries for 23 yards, but he returned a touchdown. And that's, I guess, how it works in my league. My ESPN league doesn't work that way, so I'm not sure if yours does, but I would just take a look and see what options you have available. And then Suave said, yeah, he benefits from receptions. And then he said, thanks for the input. Liked. Absolutely. Absolutely. And anybody else that's got, any fantasy football, like, look, I'm not by any means an expert. I have won my championship, and I am I am proudly in first right now in my league. But I've also I think I know what I'm doing, and then other times I can tell that I only think I know what I'm doing. It all just depends. But right now I'm feeling nicey. So if you guys got any fantasy football questions, shoot them at me. And in the meantime, see those questions. I'm going to get back to the fantasy football news. And we're going to talk about some fantasy football news. Okay. First off, the wide receiver rankings. Okay. We got Puka Nacua, Malik Neighbors, Garrett Wilson, St. Brown, Nico Collins coming in at 5th, JSN 6, Jamar Chase 7. It's pretty amazing that Jamar Chase can hang on to a 7th spot with Jake Browning and Patrick Surtain guarding him the entire game. I'm just saying, look, I would have T. Higgins over Jamar Chase this week. And this is, look, as much as like, what is turf toe? I got to remove this. As much as like, let me get my regular screen back. As much as I love the input from the fantasy experts, they do certain things sometimes where it's like a player like Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. It's like there's these prolific players are so untouchable that we're going to throw them into the top 10, no matter who the quarterback is, no matter how the offense is looking. And I got to say, like, I just think it's kind of lazy. Like, look, we got Jake Browning, which I know Jake Browning, for face value, I think Jake Browning still can have success with Jamar Chase, and Jamar Chase can have significant value. Like, of course, he's a starter, but what are we talking about? We're talking top 7. What did we see last year when Jamar Chase went up against Denver? When Jamar Chase was being covered by Surtain, and I'm going to look it up. Patrick Surtain when covering Jamar Chase. Contain Jamar Chase in their matchups. You got December 2024. This is the game I was at. Jamar Chase had 3 catches on 6 targets for just 27 yards. Okay? No touchdowns. 3 catches, 6 targets, 27 yards, as reported by Next Gen Stats. Now, that was with Joe Burrow. Okay? They played also their rookie seasons in 2021. Surtain demonstrated a strong ability to take away Jamar Chase. The Broncos star corner held Jamar Chase to 1 reception for 3 yards in their first ever NFL contest. That's it. They played twice. The first game resulted in Jamar Chase having 1 catch for 3 yards. The second game, he had 3 catches on 6 targets for 27 yards. Now, let's see let's see what T. Higgins did. Broncos, Bengals, 2024. And obviously the Bengals won in overtime. Stats. Bengals. T. Higgins. 11 receptions. 131 yards and 3 touchdowns. So you tell me who you would rather start this week, T. Higgins or Jamar Chase. But it doesn't matter what fantasy football wide receiver ranking you look at. Jamar Chase is going to be number one as far as like T. Higgins or Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase is going to be miles above T. Higgins in every single one. The question is why, right? I mean, T. Higgins comes in at 26th, and you have Jamar Chase at, when we have 2 games now of a sample size of saying, look, Patrick Surtain's going to shut him down. And Jake Browning's going to have to go somewhere else with the football. That's why they paid T. Higgins like a wide receiver 1. And that's why Jamar Chase doesn't even call him a wide receiver 2. It's wide receiver 1A and wide receiver 1B. And there's going to be weeks where 1A is going to be shut down. That's why we paid Surtain what we paid him. That's why he's the defensive player of the year reigning, is because he every single week takes your best weapon and he makes them invisible, right? And it's up to that other team to get other people involved. And when you have a 1B, that's your guy. So this week, T. Higgins should be ranked on everybody's fantasy football rankings. T. Higgins should be way higher. And you're just not going to see anybody do it, because if anybody like Matthew Berry or any credible fantasy football guy put a chart together with T. Higgins above Jamar Chase, everybody would be attacking them, saying, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. And nobody wants to deal with the noise. But me, I can get away with it. Nobody cares what I say. I'm going to tell you the truth. And that's that if you have T. Higgins, he should be your wide receiver 1 this week. And I hate to say that because I feel like Riley Moss, our number 2 corner, I love him to death, but he absolutely got destroyed by T. Higgins, and that's why they just kept throwing it. And you don't think they're watching film this week, the Bengals going, okay, we beat them last year. What worked? Oh, Riley Moss, T. Higgins. Do you really think the Broncos defensively are going to go, hey, let's take Surtain and put him on T. Higgins, and we'll put Riley Moss on Jamar Chase? No, that isn't happening either. So it's a no-brainer. And that's how I get tendinitis. Should I trade Bucky for Rome? My wide receivers are Pickens, Keenan, okay. Beat Brian Thomas Jr. Okay, so you got 3 good wide receivers. My RB1 is Saquon, and Javonte Williams would replace Bucky. I wouldn't do it. Bucky Irving was my favorite running back in fantasy football this year as far as value, because I'm not saying if I was picking number 1 overall, I'm picking Bucky over Bijan Robinson, but I am saying that if you were able to pick Saquon Barkley and then when the board came back to you, you were able to get Bucky Irving, you pretty much won your draft at that point, as long as you didn't screw it up. And that's exactly what you did. Now, I wouldn't turn around and get rid of it after 3 weeks, because look, is Keenan Allen somebody I want starting every single week? I don't know. Maybe at the flex position. But George Pickens, right here, you got George Pickens ranked 15th, right? That's solid if you got 2 running backs that are top 5. And then you got Brian Thomas Jr., all right? That's another top 20, right? I would have him a little bit higher. And keep in mind, the offense is a work in progress. They got a new head coach, Liam Cohen, my favorite head coach in this cycle over Ben Johnson, the offense is going to get rolling. It really is. So once that happens, Brian Thomas Jr. is going to catapult to top 10, right? And then you're going to have a top 10 wide receiver in Brian Thomas Jr. George Pickens is going to, with CeeDee Lamb's injury, okay, George Pickens all of a sudden is a clear wide receiver number 1. So you got Pickens, Brian Thomas Jr., Bucky Irving, and Saquon Barkley. Don't screw that up. Don't screw that up. Javonte Williams is not a replacement for Bucky Irving. Just because you want to get Rome Odunze. In my opinion, I think you should keep your team the way it is. But I do appreciate the question. Now, if you have, you were pretty clear. But the other guy, if I were the other guy and you offered me that, I would be like, okay, yeah, you can take Rome and give me Bucky Irving as long as, that other guy has the depth. Because the way I always look at it too is if I'm making a trade, okay, let's say Bucky Irving averages 20 points a week, okay, and let's say Javonte Williams is 12-point average, okay, that's an 8-point differential. So I take that 8 points and I ask myself, okay, what is the difference? Because if you're getting Rome Odunze, you're likely getting him so you can flex him over Keenan Allen, because Brian Thomas Jr. and George Pickens are starters. So what's Keenan Allen getting you on an average week? Okay, let me pull up Keenan Allen really quick and pull this up. Hold on. ESPN Fantasy. Here we go. Fantasy football, home. Let's go log in. Kyle Kitzman. Yeah, I'm just going to log in really quick because ESPN is just so much better, in my opinion, the way that they have their scores. It's just cleaner. So we go fantasy football. So we'll start with the differential between the guys that you said. So we got, okay. And now keep in mind, Javonte Williams' numbers, I think, a little inflated because week 1, he had 2 rushing touchdowns, but they were on like the 1-yard line on both of them. It wasn't like he broke off a 30-yard touchdown. It was like, okay, yeah, goal line touchdown. All right. And look, he's projected 13.9 points. And he's right now the 7th ranked running back, right? Which, that's really solid. Look, I know Javonte really well too. And I don't know if you can see right here, I have a signed Javonte Williams jersey right next to me. I'm a Javonte Williams fan. But I also know that Javonte Williams isn't the same guy he used to be. Now, this has been a really good year for him so far. He's got 3 touchdowns on the year, but like I said, 2 of them were in the first half of the first game. And I thought that was more of, I don't want to say fluke, but special circumstances and not something that we're going to be seeing a ton of. Okay. He's got right now 5.3 yards. It looks like. Let me make sure I'm pulling this up right now. He had 15 carries for 54 yards against the Eagles. He averaged 3.6 yards per carry. Now, he had 2 touchdowns in that game, and it saved him. But if he didn't have those touchdowns, what are we talking about? 3.6 yards per carry? We can't have that, right? Now, the Giants game, he had almost 100 yards. Averaged over 5 yards a carry and had a touchdown, right? So the Giants are typically, they got a really good front. Burns, Orkeke, Abdul Carter. There's another one that I'm forgetting right now. Like, that tells me something, right? And then last week, like, they're down, so they kind of abandoned the run. He only gets 10 carries, but he still got 76 yards and averaged 7.6 yards per carry. And Dallas's line, you know, finally they've been drafting first rounders. They got Tyler, 3 Tylers, and they like what they're getting. They just extended one of them 2 weeks ago or 1 week ago to a 3-year deal. I don't know. You know, this might be a moment that I look back on this and I think, what an idiot have jumped on the Javonte Williams train. But to be honest, it feels like a sell high spot for Javonte Williams. If I'm holding Javonte Williams and I can sell him to somebody for like a player that I would have had a draft in the second round, he's definitely getting traded. But if I'm you and I have George Pickens and Brian Thomas Jr., Bucky Irving, and CMC, I'm not willing to mess all that up. But let's stick with what we were going to do, okay? Because I'm going to tell you how I really decide. So you got Saquon Barkley and Javonte Williams would replace Bucky Irving, okay? Now let's look at Bucky Irving, okay? So we got Javonte Williams projected 13.9 points, okay? And on average, Javonte Williams is getting 19.2 points. Now, the other question is like, okay, but is that going to continue? Is he going to continue to have that type of success? I don't know. That's kind of the gamble. Okay. So let's take a look at Bucky Irving. All right. And let's Bucky Irving. God, I love Bucky Irving. I love Bucky Irving. Projected 17.5 points, averaging 15 points. So about like 3.5 points less. But Bucky Irving, like Javonte Williams, you're betting on him to continue to have a great season. Bucky Irving, is going to have a good season. Especially everything he does as a pass catcher. Keep in mind, Mike Evans is gone. Chris Godwin might be on a pitch count with his ankle. When it comes to being a pass catcher, like Bucky Irving is going to be playing a big role now in this offense. And yeah, the first couple games haven't been amazing. $14 carries for 37 yards. Like, that's awful, right? And then against the Jets, he had 25 carries for 66 yards. That's 2 games. He averaged 2.6 yards per carry. Okay. Now, that is not so much like a Bucky Irving thing. When I look at him and he's getting the ball handed off to him and he's being greeted by, Falcons or Jets players, that's not on him. But what he does in the receiving game, right? 4 catches on 4 targets. Like, look at this. Atlanta Falcons, he had 4 catches on 4 targets. Houston, he had 6 catches on 6 targets. The Jets, 4 catches on 4 targets. He doesn't drop these targets. All of his targets turn into catches, which turn into points. He had 50 yards receiving last week. He had the week before that, he had a receiving touchdown. And then last week, he had 33 yards receiving, only 4 catches, but he averaged 8.3 yards per catch. Same as the week before against Houston when he had 50 yards on 6 catches. So, I mean, he plays too much of a role in the passing game. I don't know if we're going to see that. I don't know if we're going to see that much success from Javonte Williams. Now, this is definitely the part of the season where you could try to get away with this kind of a trade if you were somebody trying to get by and you were like, hey, let me go ahead and see if I can try to get Bucky Irving, then I could see where you're coming at. But trading away Bucky Irving to start Javonte Williams just so you can get Rome Odunze, because that's okay. So Bucky Irving is averaging, like, let's just look at the projection, like 17 and a half. Then you got 14 and a half. So that's like a 3-point swing. Now, Keenan Allen, and because that's how I do it. So let me just, and then I'll move past this. I take a player like Bucky Irving and I say, okay, he's projected 18 points. He averages 18 points per week. I take Javonte Williams. Let's say he's projected 17 points. He averages 16 points a week. I'm just throwing numbers out. So Bucky Irving on a typical week scores 2 more points than Javonte Williams. Okay. And then I look on the other side and say, okay, Keenan Allen, you're trying to get rid of him and upgrade so you could have a flex of Rome Odunze. Rome is getting you, let's say, 20 points. Keenan Allen's getting you 14 per week. That's a 6-point swing. So does that 6-point swing, does that equal more than the amount of points you're losing at the running back position? Now, what makes this particular trade different, and that's why I can't use this philosophy, is because Javonte had 2 touchdowns week 1, and his numbers, in my opinion, are inflated right now. So you can't really go by this. It's like, going by yards per game, or, statistics in the beginning of the season are just weird in general because we need a larger sample size. But I would hold Bucky Irving and CMC. And if you're somebody that has Javonte Williams, I would consider selling high. And if you offered that trade and I had Javonte Williams, I would be like, okay, yeah, take Bucky or take Rome Odunze and give me Bucky Irving. We got Mega Brick. He said in full PPR, sit to JSN, Jamar Chase, Metcalf, Olave, Quentin Johnston. Okay, well, we got the Chargers going against the Giants. We got Chris Olave going against the Bills. We got Metcalf and Jamar Chase. Man, this is one of the things that you cannot say or you'll get canceled. But I'm sitting Jamar Chase and Johnston. I'm starting JSN, and look, we know Jamar Chase, whenever the Broncos and Bengals play, Jamar Chase is going to be covered by Patrick Surtain. Okay. Last time Patrick Surtain played against Jamar Chase had 3 catches for like 30 yards. And the first time they played, he had 1 catch for 9 yards. And T. Higgins had 11 catches for 131 yards and 3 touchdowns. This is going to be a massive day for T. Higgins. But when Jamar Chase, Denver's not going to just shadow Jamar Chase in this game. Jamar Chase was still able to have over 100 yards in that Denver game. But keep in mind, the game went into overtime. So there was some stat fluffing that happened after that. But I believe that Surtain is going to be on Jamar Chase the entire game. And JSN right now, who just had a breakout game. By the way, Sam Darnold leads all quarterbacks in big time throws, which is like 20. And just last week, Sam Darnold had like 6 throws of 20 yards or more. In JSN, when they decided to trade DK Metcalf, it was like, okay, JSN is the number 1 wide receiver, Is he ready to take on that role? And we now have a clear yes. So he's just not somebody I would want to bench, period. And then you look at Ja'Marr Chase, and I just think it's a tough matchup. You got a backup quarterback, and he's going to be covered by Surtain. Look, at Joe Burrow was still able to get Ja'Marr Chase involved in the game because he's Joe Burrow when he wasn't being covered by Surtain. But now you're asking Jake Browning to do it, and I don't believe Denver's going to take, Surtain off of Joe Burrow very much. But Joe Burrow, Ja'Marr Chase is still one of those players that he's so good that if you bench him, you're going to look like a crazy person, and you got to just almost blindly start him. Yeah, if I get burned because I started Ja'Marr Chase, then I get burned because I started Ja'Marr. Okay, with that, I live with is because Ja'Marr Chase had 20 points and I put him on my bench. But what do I actually think is going to happen? I think Ja'Marr Chase is not going to have a big game. I would start JSM and Chris Olave and Metcalf. Metcalf is, when you talk red zone targets, that's Aaron Rodgers' guy every time. And then Chris Olave, you're looking at a game that's going to be like Buffalo 16.5-point favorites in this. This is where the Saints are going to have to throw it a lot. And Chris Olave is going to have a big game. Hunter said, should I start Pollard at flex on my bench? Let me see. Fix the tab slowing your browser. This tab's using extra resources. Okay. Fantasy football ranking. Where is it? Okay. Close that tab. Wow. Thank you, StreamYard. StreamYard just was like, hey, you got one tab that's slowing your stream down. Get rid of it. I've never seen it do that before. All right. Should I start Pollard at flex? On my bench, I have Bill, Chubb, and Ladd. You have Ladd McConkey on your bench? Nick Chubb, not yet. But Ladd McConkey is my flex. Also, maybe try and trade for a wide receiver because my starters are Jamar and Myers. So you got Ja'Marr Chase. There's nothing wrong with that. And then you got Jacoby Myers, who, but you got Ladd McConkey. I feel like Ladd McConkey would be your wide receiver too, and Myers would be your flex, if anything. But who's Bill? Who the hell's Bill? Oh, maybe you meant Hill? Tyreek Hill? And it's a little early to fully give up on Tyreek Hill. I would see how that offense looks when Darren Waller gets put onto the field, which Mike McDaniel said he is expecting Darren Waller to make his season debut this week against the Jets on the doubleheader on Monday night. So I would wait on getting rid of Hill if that's who you're talking about. And we got Mega Brick. He said, I will be so let down if Olave or Johnston is on my bench and they score more than Chase. Yeah. And look, and your instinct and my instinct, like we're right there, man. We are right there. But like how let down will you be too if Ja'Marr Chase has 20 points and you've been, but look, at some point, like you just have to go with what you know. And I think when it comes to the fantasy football rankings, like these guys that are, Matthew Berry, the head guys, they could never come out publicly and say like bench Ja'Marr Chase, because everybody would be like, as soon as Ja'Marr Chase has a big game, if it happened, like they would get their lunch eaten because they would get destroyed by everybody and they would lose credibility, even though they shouldn't. That's the way they look at it. So I think there's a couple wide receivers that are untouchable. The Justin Jefferson, CD Lamb, Ja'Marr Chase. And these receivers, it's like, no matter how bad the circumstances are, you're expected to put them in your top 7 starters every week, even though there are times that that's not the case. And I think this is one of those for Ja'Marr Chase. Kay said someone offered me Brian Thomas Jr. and Keenan Allen for Kyron Williams and Ricky Pearsall. Ooh, okay. So you have Ricky Pearsall and Kyron Williams. You have Ricky Pearsall. I love Ricky Pearsall. He's my starting wide receiver, number 2. He's really my number 1. And you have Kyron Williams. And they offered you Brian Thomas Jr. and Keenan Allen. The rest of your players are CeeDee Lamb, Nico Collins. So you have wide receivers. You got Amarian Hampton, Etienne, and Cook. So you're saying since you have CD and Nico, you don't really need Pearsall. And you could essentially trade Kyron Williams for Brian Thomas Jr. and Keenan. I mean, look, it doesn't really make sense to me because you're getting rid of a running back. I mean, you have Cook and Etienne, but I would rather start Kyron Williams than Etienne. I mean, if you could start Kyron Williams and Cook, Pearsall, CD, Nico, and I mean, no, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't roll the dice in this case because I feel like the upside's all on them. I don't feel like there's any upside for you. Like, we know Brian Thomas Jr. is a good wide receiver. But you have CeeDee Lamb, Nico Collins, and Ricky Pearsall. Like, you're set. So really, this is all about the running backs, and you're not even being offered a running back. And Kyron Williams and Cook are your 1 and 2, and you're flexing a wide receiver when you're that deep at receiver. So that's a hard pass for me. Hunter said, Ja'Cory Crocky Merritt. Is that a question? Oh, that's Bill? I didn't know that he goes by. Wait, I thought I did hear about that. I think on the Sunday pregame or something. Or somebody was talking about it, and he's like, he goes by Bill. I forgot about that. It's a weird name to go by Bill, though, you know? And that, okay. That doesn't change anything, though, from me. I'm sorry that I keep saying, oh, Kenneth Walker, not Kyron. Oh, got you. I was like, I didn't know Kyron Williams was the 3rd anyway. Okay, that makes more sense. Okay, so let's reevaluate now because that does change things. So you have Kenneth Walker. But yeah, it's just like at the end of the day, you're not getting the right players. Like you're getting Brian Thomas Jr. and Keenan Allen. If I were you, and if you could tell me, you know, what running backs does this guy have? Because I would decline this trade, but now that you know he's interested in Ricky Pearsall and he wants Kenneth Walker the 3rd, I would go back and say, look, give me Brian Thomas Jr. for Pearsall. So that's a straight up wash. But instead of Keenan Allen, like, I need a running back because you have Hampton and you have Cook. So you have 2 running backs, but you really want a 3rd running back, either to flex or in case somebody gets hurt. And if you make this trade, now you're kind of in a situation where you lose Ricky Pearsall, you lose Kenneth Walker, and you're going to have to hope that one of them 2 doesn't get hurt. I don't really see the upside in the trade just because of how loaded at wide receiver you already are. But yeah, if you counter the the trade and see what running backs you can get. Because he obviously sees you're loaded at wide receiver. He's not. And he wants to see if he can get a wide receiver. So, try to see if you can get, it's hard. I don't know what he has, but my favorite thing to do is I don't decline trades. I go right back at them, because when somebody offers you a trade, that it's because you have something that they want. And if that's the case, it's up to you to not just say no, but figure out how bad they want it, right? Offer them a trade. And let me know if you guys, out there listening, if you guys have any questions, fantasy football related questions. We got some fantasy football news. Let's see what we got. We never really got into the news because the questions started pouring in, but man, I like doing the questions anyway. I think I'm going to start a Wednesday night fantasy Q&A, because obviously Wednesday's the night to do it. Thursday night football is, you got to have your roster set by Wednesday night. And after Tuesday, waivers have already cleared. So Wednesday night fantasy football, that's going to be a new thing here. So this is from NBC Sports. They got Lamar Jackson as the number 1 fantasy football quarterback this week. Happy to say that he's on my team. Matthew Berry's fantasy football rankings. What are these, all quarterbacks? Oh, okay. So I'll give you the top 5 quarterbacks from Matthew Berry, okay? He's got Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Jaden Daniels, and Caleb Williams. Justin Herbert, Justin Fields, Mahomes at 8, Jordan Love at 10 or 9, and Bo Nix at 10. Okay. And then running back rankings: Christian McCaffrey, number 1, Devon Achane, number 2, Jonathan Taylor, number 3. That is awesome. Between quarterbacks and running backs, I have the number 1, the number 3, and the number 1. Number 1 quarterback, number 1 running back, number 3 running back. That's why I keep winning. Jonathan Taylor's emerged as a offensive player of the year favorite, and he is having himself a year. He's going to be going against the Rams. Then you got Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson, Saquon Barkley, James Cook, Josh Jacobs, Bucky Irving, and Omarion Hampton. So you got Bucky Irving, Josh Jacobs, James Cook, all in the top 3. And then Derrick Henry at 11 and Kyron Williams at 12. Jaylen Warren comes in at 13, which is where he's at. Somebody in the comments said earlier he's, I think, RB 13 averaging. So then at wide receiver, Puka Nacua at 1. That seems to be the consensus. Then we got Nico Collins at 2. Amon-Ra St. Brown, JSN. So look at this. You got Nico Collins, which is back to this guy, K. You got Nico Collins, who's the number 2 ranked fantasy wide receiver. You got JSN. No, you don't have JSN. Somebody before you had JSN. Yeah, I guess he was a little bit higher. Somebody offered me. Okay, so you got CeeDee Lamb, Nico Collins, Omarion Hampton, Etienne, and Cook. Yeah, but you got Nico Collins, and Cook was ranked really high. Man, Cook has really emerged. I mean, he emerged last year, but this year he is all gas, no brakes. Where's James Cook? The number 7 ranked running back, and I think that might be a little low considering they're going against the Saints. And then we got Jinja, Daniel Berry, over Matthew Berry. Whoa, Daniel Berry, where are you at in the chat? Here or your channel? Where should Ginger be? Write me out. Definitely here. Yeah, definitely here, because now I'm streaming in 2 places at once. So I'm streaming on my YouTube page, on my X page, and on the Only Football podcast. So I no longer have to do multiple streams to put out the same news. That is something that is going to be new with the Only Football podcast. It is like fully merged with NFL with Kyle. So it should make life easier for everybody else. Also, the short that we made on YouTube when I started this was at 222,000 views. Now, I'm going to see right now where it's at. Okay, let's see. 4 minutes ago, it's up to 3,000 likes. And shorts, guys, it's at 317,000 views. Let's go! 317,000 views. We had 100,000 more views since I've been live. 100,000 more since I've been live. And that's one of the reasons that I was like, I have to go live, because when you go live and people watch the short, it lights up that you're live. And I figured they're going to click it and they show up here. So I'm kind of like hoping that people filter in here. And if you're joining us right now for the first time, we just hit 900 subscribers. Let's go. 900 subscribers on the Only Football podcast. It's a big day. It's a big day. Ladies and gentlemen, I got something to say. $903 subscribers. We are 50. No. My math isn't mathing. I was doing an hour. 60 minutes an hour. I was going to do 57 minutes. We are 97 subscribers away from 1,000 subscribers here on the Only Football podcast. And look at what we did with the channel. Look at we rebranded. We rebranded the banner in the background. We got the John Elway with the Broncos country with the retro. He's got a Walter Payton. And then you got Rick and me. I got 3 beers. And then the martini glass with the football floating in it. And then here's the oh, I didn't want to do that. I just wanted to show you the new logo. But yeah, Ginger loves it. That's what I wanted to ask. And look, this is the short that I made earlier today. It was who gets fired first.
Nick Flanagan.
Mr. Humboom, I wanted to thank you.
Fired.
I beg your pardon.
Fired.
But I
That are in the hot seat right now. So anyway, super happy that we just hit 900 subscribers here on the Only Football podcast. It is a big day for the channel. And if you guys have been along this whole time, like Ginger was here when we had 3 subscribers, he said from the first stream, I remember Tom Grassi rated our channel and Ginger was one of the people. And he said that night, I'm not going anywhere. And he has been here for every single stream for the last 3 years. This is our 4th season at the Only Football podcast. And last Sunday, I drove to Indianapolis and met Jinja in real life. He bought me a cold one. We played football before the game. We hugged. And this is real. What we're doing, we're meeting, we're connecting. Like we're a community. Like I know what, personal life. He knows about my personal life, like struggles. It becomes more than just football. It becomes a real community. And that's why when I made the bio for the Only Football podcast, I made it in a way that let people know that this isn't just a football channel, but it's a community. And the description that I wrote was Only Football brings you a highly interactive NFL community with fans that make watching football even better, because that's what we do. We watch football anyway, right? Why not do it together? That's how this whole thing started, was that I felt like, man, I'm so passionate about this, but I do it alone. There's other people out there that love football as much as I do. Why don't we try to make ourselves a home, right? There's a lot of big, huge podcasts out there where you get lost in the comments, but not here. Here, everybody matters. And not that they, other channels, you don't matter. It's just, it's hard to keep up when, comments are rolling and rolling and rolling. But here is like, we really do know each other, man. Kyle and Rick bring you weekly live streams of all Sunday football, including primetime on Mondays and Thursdays. We give you the recap. On Thursdays, we make our prediction. Subscribe to join the Only Football family. And that's what's happened. We have 904 subscribers, where on Sunday, we were trying to get to 800. And we were able to get all the way to 903 subscribers. And Jin just said, "You're my brother now. It's real. Check out your messages." Hell yeah. And then he said, "Neon theme lives forever. That's why I gave you that pair of shorts." Dude, and I love that pair of shorts. But yeah, man, just so happy about everything that's happening right now on this channel. And I'm just thankful to all of you guys, man, for being here, making it happen. But let's cover the latest NFL news, and then I'll let you guys go for the night. I didn't mean to keep you guys super late, but I didn't even know I was going to be going live for 3 hours when I started this. But it's just been a great time, man. People asking fantasy football questions, and if you have one, shoot, put it in the chat. Tell me, you got a conundrum. Who are you going to flex? A wide receiver you don't know if you can trust? Ask me. Put it in the comments. The later, the better. The later, the better. And that is what I do best. All right. So the Commanders, Jayden Daniels, is he playing week 4 against the Falcons? Well, Jayden Daniels said it's up to the doctors. And his absence didn't hold back the Commanders in week 3. Actually, a really good game by Marcus Mariota. But Daniels is dealing with a knee sprain. He returned to practice in a limited fashion on Wednesday, and he spoke with reporters, offering a little clarity on whether he'll play or not. It's up to the doctors, not my decision. Makes it sound kind of like he wanted to play last week, but they wouldn't let him. And that's interesting, right? Because we don't see that a lot. A lot of times you hear players come out about how their team doctors didn't really have their best interest in mind, whatever it takes to throw the player back on to the field. But here we have Jayden Daniels saying, like, no, like, it's not my decision. I'm ready to go, but I need to get cleared by the doctors. I've heard about this with concussions, but usually not a knee. Daniels added he feels good, but also remained vague when answering questions, noting he doesn't believe his knee injury affects his ability to perform, and he's stable enough to move well. Enough to feel good if I play on Sunday, while emphasizing it's not my decision. So look, this is probably the right move. All right. If there's any franchise that knows about quarterbacks taking gruesome, terrible injuries, Joe Theismann, RG3, Alex Smith, there's a lot of quarterbacks that, for whatever reason on that field, they just don't, they don't avoid these catastrophic injuries. And with RG3, like, he had the knee injury, then they had the knee brace on, and it reminds me of Boobie Miles, when Boobie, well, you want to win, put Boobie in. I'm about to spin. You want to win, put Boobie in. And they finally put Boobie in, and he was done for the year. Like, the Commanders are being careful, right? It's a knee sprain. It's a significant injury. And I thought when he was playing against Green Bay that something was wrong. I remember seeing him get up, and he was like kind of slow and like touching his knee. So I could see it on my TV. So I do think with the way Marcus Mariota proved that, he can take over and they'll be good. Their season's not in jeopardy. Guys, they won 41-24 over the Raiders. Okay. So, the Commanders head coach Dan Quinn made the choice to sit Jaden week 3 and turn to backup Marcus Mariota. It was Dan Quinn's choice to do that. And the decision didn't seem to sit quite well with Jaden Daniels. And he said, I'll leave that between me and him. Daniels said when asked how he reacted to Dan Quinn's decision last week, it wasn't like the most, yeah, okay, I'm going to sit out. So, look, there's something going on right now in Washington, and I'm reporting it to you, all right? Marcus Mariota, Jaden Daniels, Dan Quinn, this knee injury, credit the franchise. They've been doing a good job of keeping it all kind of hush-hush. But whatever's going on with his knee, Dan Quinn is trying to do what's in the best interest of his player, turns to Marcus Mariota. Jaden Daniels doesn't feel good about it. It doesn't sit right with him. He has a moment with Dan Quinn that he won't even let us know about, but he kind of let us know about in his own way by saying, I'll leave that between him and me, instead of saying, I just said, I understand. He didn't quite say that. And when a player, it was like me and Ginger were talking about the Colts front office, and he said, that the daughter came out and said that there had been like some spiffs going on between Shane Steichen and the general manager. And he was saying, like, if ownership is bringing it up, then it's a lot more than just a couple arguments, right? Because if it was just a couple arguments, you don't bring that up. But if you bring it up, it's usually significant enough to bring up. And this, to me, is something that Daniels doesn't like, right? Daniels had a really bad game against the Packers. It was not a good start to the season. And then you had week 1, which week 1 was, who did they play week 1? The Commanders. I can't remember who they played week 1, but I'm pretty sure they played a really good opponent and lost. And then finally last week, with him on the bench, they get a huge win and score 40-plus points. Mariota, goes 15 for 21, 207 yards. He has 40 yards on 6 carries. He has a rushing touchdown. The offense generates 400 yards of offense. If the doctors don't clear Jaden Daniels in time for Sunday's game, Mariota is going to be expected to take the place again, take Jaden's place again versus a stingier Atlanta defense. But there's also a revenge thing here because Mariota was the quarterback for Atlanta just a couple years ago. He was featured on Quarterback on Netflix when he played for Atlanta. He was living in Hawaii when they called. So anyway, for now, the Commanders are going to continue to hope that through the rest of the week, Jaden will be good enough to go. And Jaden will continue his return to play process, Dan Quinn said. We'll see him out there today in a limited fashion, and we're going to continue to rely on the medical team, to fully clear him. What I can say is that he's doing everything he possibly can to get there. The guy's the ultimate competitor for us. You know that. I know that. So we will see. The other Commanders news, Terry McLaurin's got a quad, and rookie running back Bill Krosky Merritt. Oh, that's Bill. Okay, we talked about that. He did not practice in Wednesday's practice, or he didn't participate in Wednesday's practice. So just some news there about the Commanders and the situation with Jaden Daniels. Callahan, Brownlee. This is Titans Brian Callahan. Jarvis Brownlee trade was a one-off situation, not a sign of a fire sale to come. Now, this is something important that a head coach has to clarify whenever you're a losing team that decides to start trading players right at the quarter mark when you haven't won a football game yet. So he has come out and said, like, that's a one-off situation, right? I don't want a bunch of front offices around the league calling everybody in football that we're looking for different things, that it's a fire sale, we're burning it all down. I just wanted Jarvis Brownlee to go to the Jets, and that was the trade that was done. All right. Jarvis Brownlee to the Jets is not a sign of things to come. The coach continues to reiterate. So it isn't the most definitive answer. This is what he said. So I can't say whether or not there will be something more or nothing more. It's hard for me to make any predictions about that or stake any statements about it. I think that's always what front offices around the league are trying to figure out, is if there's players to be had and if there's draft capital to be had. Keep in mind, a lot of times you're trying to get rid of a player that you know you're not going to re-sign, but he's in the final year of his contract, and you know you're not a Super Bowl team, so you can get rid of a player that's kind of good, that might be the piece to take another team over the top, and you can get something for him, right? This is like what Von Miller, it broke my heart, but when Von Miller, we got a third-round draft pick for Von Miller on a season that we knew we weren't going to the playoffs. Von Miller was able to go to the Rams, and he was that piece. They won the Super Bowl. But at the end of that season, we weren't going to offer him a new contract, and he would have walked, and we would have gotten nothing back for him. And we already knew we weren't a serious playoff team at that point in the season. So why not get a third, especially if you're a team that's not in the playoffs anyway? You want to get more draft picks and more capital. So, I mean, it is something that is always going on around the league, but especially with teams that are getting 0-3 starts. And once you get to mid-season, you get to that point where you're not a playoff team and the trade deadline's looming around the corner, and you start to pick up your phone and make some conversations. But Brian Callahan suggesting the Titans aren't nearing a midseason teardown mode. They are 0-3, so that would be somewhat understandable had they said, yeah, we have everything's for sale or everyone's for sale. But that's not what he said. And given the talent deficiencies that have been glaring during the 3 losses, they could use extra capital to jumpstart the rebuild, as would any team that's 0-3 that's lacking talent. So it wouldn't be the wisest move if the Titans are interested in retaining their fan base's engagement with 14 games left to play. That's the other part where you don't want to tell your fans, yeah, we're not a legitimate contender this year. Even if you think that or feel it, you have a rookie quarterback that looks really good, in my opinion, right? You haven't won a game yet, but if you send a message like that to your fans, you're basically telling them, you can tune out this year. We're already looking at next year. And you have to be very careful. These are tricky waters to navigate because, like I said, you want to get capital and make your team better so you can compete in the future, but you don't want to do it in a way that makes it look like you're not even playing for this year. Okay? And that's the head coach's job, which I believe Brian Callahan's doing a really good job of based on how he's navigating this. And he said, whether it's a lesser role or not, talking about how the Titans view their cornerback group right now. There was some details that Callahan opted to keep out of the conversation that preceded the trade in-house. Obviously, they had some conversations about what was going to happen with their corners, and if we got rid of this player, who would step up. Some of these details not really public. Whether it's a lesser role or not, I think the important part is we do have some players that we feel good about that are starting to play good football for us and getting ingrained in the system. Starting to have a little bit more action, Callahan said when asked if Brownlee was headed toward a lesser role. The Titans had decided Brownlee wasn't going to be a part of their future. They found a willing buyer in the Jets, a team searching for a secondary help on the other side of Sauce Gardner. And this is a good move too for the Jets, who have a defensive coach, right? They get defensive coach, comes over from the Lions, and I feel like the Jets have been playing pretty good defense, running the football well with Breece Hall, and now here they are getting a good corner to pair with Sauce. And perhaps the Titans believe this was one of the best returns it would receive for Brownlee. A player Callahan said did not ask to be traded, as far as the coach was aware. With more than a month left before the trade deadline, it'll be interesting to see if Tennessee answers the calls on other players with higher status or greater value. They still, in my opinion, are known for the A.J. Brown disaster, right? I mean, they traded A.J. Brown. That's crazy. They traded him to draft a wide receiver that I'm blanking on his name right now because of how irrelevant he's been. I've said his name a million times. I'm blanking on it right now, but that's the thing. If you're going to trade A.J. Brown, I can't be blanking on his name. Burks, Treylon Burks, right? So Titan fans have been through the ringer when it comes to trades. This one, not so bad, but Schottenheimer, Brian Schottenheimer, sorry, this is just the NFL news portion here. We got Woody the Badger in the chat. What's up, Woody? He said, I have Dak, Kamara, RJ Harvey, Marvin Harrison, Drake London, T. Higgins, Brock Bowers. That's a really good squad for a 14-man full PPR. I'm 1-2 in down bad. Should I look to sell or what? Let me see. So, I mean, you got Brock Bowers and you got Marvin Mims. You're really missing a good running back. So here's what I would do. I would find the team that has the most loaded running backs. There's somebody on your team that has Christian McCaffrey and Jonathan Taylor, or Christian McCaffrey and Bucky Irving. Whatever that team is, find that team, okay? And offer Brock Bowers and RJ Harvey start with that. Brock Bowers and RJ Harvey for Christian McCaffrey. And then if he says no, then do Brock Bowers. Now, if there's two teams that have two really good running backs, obviously, I'm sure you know this, but trade with the team that has the worst tight end, because obviously Brock Bowers is going to be tight end. So, no, or you could flex him, but it'll probably help if he's got no tight end, right? Because he's got to be thinking like, wow, I'm getting the best tight end in football, which might be the best player on your team. But look, Brock Bowers, let me pull up his numbers really quick, because, and this is how I won my trade earlier this season, is the way that I look at the trades, right? It's very non-emotional. It's very points. It's just math. So we go players, okay? And then we're going to go available. No, we're going to go to all, okay? And we're going to go Bowers. Brock Bowers. I know he had 100 yards week 1. Complete stats. Why I hate that fantasy's doing that this year. Okay. Points. Here we go. So he had 15 points week 1. He had 103 yards. But look, week 2, week 3, he's got 8.8 points and 9.8 points. Is he still like one of the best tight ends? Yes, absolutely. But you could get some serious value for this guy. Okay. So what I would do is, because you're missing a running back, I would trade Brock Bowers, because if you go to your waiver wire, all right, there's a Kincaid. If maybe you can get like, look, between Tucker Kraft, Kincaid, Hawkinson, Laporta, Kittle, I think Kittle's dealing with an injury, but Travis Kelce, like Jake Ferguson, Jonnu Smith, like there's a lot of tight ends that can get you 10 points is what I'm trying to say. Brock Bowers is getting you on average 12 points per game. Okay. So let's say you get a tight end that averages 10 points per game, right? That you're -2, right? You had a guy that got you 12. Now you're putting a guy in that gets you 10, but RJ Harvey was getting you 4 or 5 points, 6 points. Now you have a running back that's getting you 20. So that's a 14-point differential minus the 2 you're losing at tight end. You're still plus 12. So what you want to do is you want to take Brock Bowers, who is averaging 12 points, find someone that needs a tight end, sell Brock Bowers, and get yourself a really good, really good running back. And you might have to pair him with somebody that you maybe want to keep, but you might just have to do it. I would say out of these guys, I would do Marvin Harrison. Drake London and T. Higgins, I think I would keep. Marvin Harrison, you might be able to do, because look, I would maybe try to sell the farm here. You're 1 and 2, so you don't want to overreact, but let's say you could sell like Dak, Harvey, Harrison, and Bowers. That's 4 players, and you could get CMC and Lamar Jackson. That's like worth considering. If he doesn't have a tight end and you sell Dak, Harvey, Marvin Harrison, and Brock Bowers for Lamar Jackson and CMC, all of a sudden your lineup is Lamar Jackson, CMC. Then you got, where is it? Kamara, Lamar Jackson, CMC, Kamara. And then, of course, you still have T. Higgins and Drake London. And then all you have to do now is figure out who you're going to flex. But like, that's how I would approach it. I would try to sell 4 players and get, a star, like a Lamar and a CMC. If whoever has Lamar has a CMC or a Bijan Robinson, like one of those top 3, or Jonathan Taylor, then I would go and sell 4 guys, try to get 2. Offer Olave for Rashee Rice. I wouldn't right now. I really wouldn't. Like I know that people don't trust Chiefs offense. I don't trust the Saints offense either. But I think Chris Olave, Kellen Moore's a good offensive play caller. They're going to be down in a lot of games. The Chiefs are going to play, defensive games. I think there's going to be less. I think Chris Olave could be like a 13 target a week guy. They're playing Buffalo this week. Watch, what happens with him. Jason said, I traded Judy, who I never started, Addison, who never started, and Pollard for Javonte Williams, Ladd McConkey, and Mike Evans. Did I win or no? You traded Judy. Yeah, it hasn't. You never started him. The Browns offense hasn't been good. Jordan Addison, Vikings. I mean, suspension, but the Vikings offense hasn't been great. And you got Ladd McConkey, Mike Evans dealing with a hamstring, and you got Javonte Williams. So you traded Tony Pollard for Javonte Williams. And I mean, Javonte Williams, it's kind of a gamble. Like Javonte Williams has, had a much better start to the season than anybody predicted, but you're really betting on if he will continue. I'll tell you this, if Javonte Williams, because this is obviously, if I had Javonte Williams, I'm selling high. This doesn't surprise me that Javonte was in this trade package because it's a sell high spot. Now, if Javonte Williams sustains the success, you won the trade. I mean, you have Ladd McConkey. You got Mike Evans, who's dealing with a hamstring, but he'll be back in maybe 3-4 weeks. But it doesn't really matter as long as you're in the playoff conversation. You get Mike Evans back for playoff time, and now you got Ladd McConkey, Mike Evans, and Javonte Williams. Right now, I think he's like the 7th best running back or something, 9th. He's top 10. So if he can sustain that, you won. But it's one of those trades that we just won't know until at least a couple more weeks. Jason said start 2: DJ Moore, Pittman, Waddle, Jaylen Warren. Probably Jaylen Warren and Pittman. Jalen Waddle had a touchdown last week that helped him out a ton. DJ Moore's not the number one target. Pittman's the number one target. And then Jaylen Warren is the 13th best running back in the league. So I'd probably go that way. I would probably go Pittman and Warren. Start 2: Javonte Williams, Swift, Myers. Javonte and Swift. And then start 1. If no Fields this week, no Justin Fields this week, start 1. Penix, Geno, Rodgers, the 9 a.m. game, or Stafford. Okay, Rodgers, no. I don't like starting quarterbacks internationally ever. It just never works out. Like there are always these like ugly games that are boring, and I always feel bad for the international audience, but I'm out on Rodgers internationally on what has already been kind of a bleak offense for the Steelers. Geno Smith, I'm not feeling Geno right now at all. You got Penix or Stafford is really what this comes down to, is Penix or Stafford. Okay. You got Penix going up against the Commanders, and you have Stafford going against, I would go Stafford. I mean, look, we know the Colts offense is dynamic. This is going to be a dome, no weather, 75 degrees, beautiful, and all offense. Look, I think this game might be 38-41, the winner of this game. This is going to be all offense. Stafford, I'm sorry I took so long. If I saw that they were playing the Colts in LA, I would have said right away. But yeah, it's the Matthew Stafford option. Will you trade Sticky Ricky for Sutton? I have Bo Nix, so I want that stock. And if the owner says no, will you trade Nix Ricky for a stack of Murray and Harrison? Would you trade Nix and Ricky Pearsall for Kyler Murray and Harrison? So you really want okay, you really just want that quarterback to wide receiver connection. No, I wouldn't trade Ricky Pearsall for Cortland Sutton. And I wouldn't trade Bo Nix for Murray. I honestly think I know what you're trying to get, but I think Bo Nix and Ricky Pearsall is the best combination out of all of these. And then you said nervous when Jennings, Ayuk, and Kittle comes back. Yeah, I mean, kind of, but like, look at like what happened the last 3 weeks of last year. He had like 20 points every single week, and there were healthy, wide receivers on the field. I think that people are saying like, yeah, this is going to dip into his target share, but Ricky Pearsall has really, like, in his own right. It's one thing like, oh, this wide receiver is getting a bunch of targets because there's an injury to the number one, but when the number one comes back, it's like, okay, that's kind of over. But when Ricky Pearsall, it's like Puka Nacua, right? Like Cooper Kupp gets hurt, Puka Nacua turns into a machine. And it's not like when Cooper Kupp got healthy, it was like, all right, that Puka guy was pretty good, but now that Cooper's healthy, we're good. Sometimes a wide receiver does so well in anyone's absence that he just kind of takes over the show. And in San Francisco, my gut feeling is that it is the Ricky Pearsall show, and those other guys coming back. Yeah, will he get 1 or 2 less targets a game? Maybe. Yeah, probably. But is the Ricky Pearsall show going to come to an end? I don't think so. That's ingenious. Crap. I don't remember what it was, what I said. Mahomes for Jordan Love. Yeah. Ultimately, it's like, which offense is going to be better? It's going to be Packers. I look at that I got Ladd and Mike Evans for free because I never used or going to use Judy or Addison. Yeah, well, I mean, Addison was suspended, so that's why you didn't use him. Judy, I get what you mean. It's like if I traded Travis Hunter, it's like it was free because I never had to use him. But if Travis Hunter starts scoring 15 to 20 points every week after I trade him, then it sucks because he's no longer on my bench. So like, just because you're not starting somebody doesn't mean he doesn't have value. Sometimes a player's value is that in the case that he does break out, he's on your bench, right? And this happens every single week. I mean, there's a new player that has a breakout game every week, right? That's why the waiver wire has waiver wire targets, where a player will be rostered 80% of leagues in 1 week because he had a breakout performance. So like, there's certain players that I wouldn't say that just because they're on your bench, they don't have any value, because the value is the upside of that player. And in the case of Jerry Jeudy, yeah, there might not be a ton of upside because of the Joe Flacco, Shedeur Sanders, like whatever's going on there. If Jameis Winston was in Cleveland, I would say keep Jerry Jeudy, but I don't really trust any of the quarterbacks thrown to Jeudy, so I'm good with that. But the other guy, right, Jordan Addison, like Kevin O'Connell is going to find a way to get Jordan Addison a lot of targets, a lot of catches, a lot of touchdowns. He's the number 2 receiver. All the attention's on Justin Jefferson. I mean, Jordan Addison's definitely a guy you want to keep on your bench, in my opinion. And then Ginger said, drop Swift for anything. Oh, about the last question. Stafford killed us. Yeah, kills us. Stafford kills us. And then Ginger says, Sticky Ricky's good. Sticky Ricky reminded me first that Ricky Williams. And Jason Ortiz said, "Thanks, homie. No problem, dude. Hit the sub button if you enjoy it, so that way you are reminded. You can come back in here. It'll notify you when we go live." We got Shadows in the chat. He said, "Should I offer Justin Jefferson for Scatabo, Pearsall, and Benson?" Ooh, okay. Scatabo had himself a game, didn't he, on Sunday Night Football? One that's definitely going to earn him a massive target share increase, a snap share increase, snap count increase, all of it. You got a new rookie coming in. He's going to be dumping the ball off a lot. Get out of jail free card's going to be Scatabo. I like that. Pearsall. Yeah, honestly, yes. Yes, I would make this trade. Justin Jefferson. Yeah, he's a good wide receiver. What's he going to do? Score you 100 points? Not this year. I think sometimes people get so they actually like these players in real life. They like the way that their lineup feels when it's, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, these you got these guys that you love looking at, but you got to just take that away for a second and say, how many points is this guy realistically going to get me? Now, what is the value of 3 players that I could start every single week? You're talking Scatabo is a flex. Ricky Pearsall is the number 2 reception yards and catches leader in the NFL. And then you got Trey Benson, who is now the starting running back because of the injury to James Conner. To me, this is a take it and run. But obviously, I just read it again. You're offering this. If it was offered to you, I would absolutely take it. And if I were you, I would offer it. The other wide receivers are Amon-Ra St. Brown, Quentin Johnston, and Rome Odunze. Okay, Rome Odunze is your starter from now on. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Rome Odunze, you're going to flex Ricky Pearsall, and then you're going to have Scatabo and Benson as your 2 running backs. Sign me up. I'm ready to go with that team every week. And look, I know it's a little scary with the Benson thing, but I think you're going to make up for it with, all the other positions that are ridiculous. You usually can't have this many good players on one team, but right now you may be able to get away with that. But if it's week 10 and Ricky Pearsall is a top 5 wide receiver, that trade's not going through. So I would take advantage of it now. And you said, I read that one already. And then he said, it's a 2-flex league. And it's a 2-flex read. And my running backs are Gainwell, Swift, Najee, and Hunt. This will help my running back depth. Yeah, because Najee's done, right? Kareem Hunt has been kind of disappointing. Gainwell, nothing there really in Swift. So you really just need one more player to flex. And you would be starting Scatabo and Benson. You would have Pearsall and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Wait, no, you're fine. You're fine. You would have Scatabo flexed, right? You would have, this is what you would do, right? You would have Scatabo flexed or RB1, RB2, Benson, Pearsall, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Odunze, and then you just need one more flex, and I guess that would be Swift. How many teams are in this league? How many teams do you have? So you got St. Brown, St. Brown, Pearsall, St. Brown, Pearsall, Adunze, flex, and then Scat, flex, and then you have Benson, flex. So you just need one running back, and all you have is Kenneth Gainwell, Swift, and Najee. I would go Swift, I guess. Yeah, Swift. I mean, Swift with Ben Johnson, he's going to get you a lot of red zone targets. I think Ben Johnson goes to the running back in the red zone like more than any other coach. So Swift is going to get a ton of opportunities inside the 5-yard line. Ben Johnson wants to utilize the running backs in the hot zone, red zone, inside the 10. So I think Swift as a second flex spot is not a bad deal at all. And then you got Rome Odunze in that, or Ricky Pearsall in that other flex spot. So I think it would look like this. St. Brown and Pearsall, wide receiver 1 and 2. And then Scatabo and Benson, RB 1 and 2, flex Odunze and flex Swift. So yeah, I feel like that's a good trade. I think I would make that trade, especially right now, because you're lacking stars. Like, you need more players. And really, you have to be able to take your best player like Jefferson and bait. It's just like a cornerback who's baiting the wide receiver to make him think he's open, just to jump it. You take Justin Jefferson, you take these names with, the wow factor attached to them, and you bait them into giving up the farm. You take those 3 players, start all of them. I mean, Justin Jefferson's worth maybe 20 points a week on average. He hasn't even done that this year, but let's say best case scenario, things get back to normal. He's worth 20, and you got Scatabo, who is, worth 15 to 20 from Swift. And then you got Pearsall, who's like 20. I mean, we're talking like little less than 60 points in value. So Jen just said, I missed this one. Cam the Ham, any player you think I could get in return for Swift? He's been hard to trade. And do you just mean like any position at all? Any player that you could get in return for Swift? I mean, I think Scatabo. I think that's a good target area. We're talking tiers here. Let me pull up. Let's see. Clear search, running backs. Man, Aaron Jones Sr. is on IR. Did you guys know about this? I totally forgot about that. I'm going to see if he's available in my league, because he's coming off IR in October. And maybe somebody dropped him. I doubt it, but it's worth checking. So definitely check your league if Aaron Jones Sr. is available. And no, he's on somebody's bench. I was going to say that's a solid option. And then Austin Eckler's on IR as well. Brian Robinson Jr. I'm looking at my waiver wire. Ollie Gordon continues emerging as a short yardage option. Yeah, honestly, though, I wouldn't give up on Swift yet. I wouldn't give up on Swift yet. Like Ben Johnson wants to use Swift. And the only problem so far was that the Bears offense just was so lackluster. But now it's getting to the point where Rome Odunze is really starting to get a good connection. You still have DJ Moore. Caleb Williams had his best game maybe of his career. He completed the deepest pass of his career in that, I think it was a flea flicker. It was like a 61-yarder. I think if this offense, I mean, look, they're coming off their best week ever with Caleb Williams. So maybe not the time to get rid of Swift. This would be a sell low spot. So even if you wanted to sell Swift, you're selling at the worst time possible. You want to sell high, you want to buy low. So I would hold on to Swift no matter what, and see, what happens the next couple of weeks. That's just my 2 cents about it. And Jinja, come on, Ham, join the fam. It even rhymes. It even rhymes. Hit the sub button and join the Only Football fam. Cam the Ham said he has averaged almost 11 a game without a touchdown. That's not too bad, honestly. Yeah, and honestly, like, I still think we haven't really seen. I don't think, I'm not saying I think he's going to like emerge as top 10 fantasy, but I think he's going to emerge as like a set and forget flex for the season in just a couple of weeks. That's what my gut's telling me. Now, the Bears this week are playing the Raiders, so another opportunity for them. The Raiders, they just gave up 40 points to a Commanders team who had to roll with a backup quarterback and Marcus Mariota. This could be another opportunity for the Bears to get rolling. And if that happens, they take a significant lead. You're looking at Swift getting a bunch of touches, bunch of carries, kind of a ground and pound drain the clock. And even when it's not like they're running the clock out, like Caleb Williams throws it to Swift a lot when you watch the Bears games. And it's funny because the guy I do this podcast with is a Bears fan, and he's like, I'm done with Swift. Get him off the team. And like, I get the frustration, but if I had him on my team, I would hold. All right. And if you guys got anything, if you're watching, listening, you got any fantasy questions, I'm going to cut this one. Well, cut it for the night. We did good. We went 3 hours and 42 minutes. So tomorrow I'll be going live at noon. That's just in 12 hours from now. At noon, we'll be going live with our predictions of the week 4 slate. We're going to give you the answers. I'm going to give you the lines, my favorite bets. We didn't get to betting because we were talking fantasy for 3 hours, but tomorrow we're going to be getting into the games. There's a lot of games that are going to be tough to pick. Not nearly as hard as week 3, though. Week 3 was a real juggernaut. And here we go. He said, just traded Pollard for Debo. I had Evans so he can fill my wide receiver number 2 because I had Evans and have Henry, Swift, and Henderson. And you traded Pollard for Debo. I guess I like the trade. The only thing is you had Ramondre Stevenson fumble the ball 3 times. And that's what it took for Trayvon Henderson to get the nod. I'm not sure why it had to come down to that, but was the benching of Ramondre Stevenson a sign of things to come? Because Trayvon Henderson provided a spark, and he was drafted by a lot of people, like in the 3rd, 4th round, right? So the expectations were really high, partially him returning the kickoff in the preseason, combined with, just the large sample size of what he did at Ohio State. So I think like it's funny. I feel like this is a coward's way out to say it's hard to tell right now. It's just you don't really know until you see how the Patriots are going to deal with the Ramondre Stevenson fumbles, because if now Trayvon Henderson is going to be getting like 60-40% of the snaps, then maybe Trayvon Henderson does so well with the 60 that it ends up being 70-30. I mean, how many times have we seen a running back go to the doghouse and then all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, your offense is running way better with this other guy in the field. And then it's like this running back plays himself out of into the one. It's not so much Ramondre. I mean, he did have the fumbles, but if Trayvon Henderson makes the most of his opportunities and this offense starts rolling, you just came away with, maybe a top 13 running back. That's why it's hard to know now, but I like the upside and I like Swift, and Derrick Henry's a no-brainer. So the fact that you now have Debo, because you have that vacancy with Mike Evans dealing with injury. So now you slide Debo into that spot. And who's your number one wide receiver? I guess that's the only thing. And then Cam the Ham said he'll be back tomorrow for bets. I love it. Yeah, we will be going live at noon. We're in Central Time, so I don't know what time zone y'all are at. That's 1 p.m. Eastern. That's 11 Mountain, and then 10 Pacific Standard, Pacific Coast, Pacific Standard Time. Yeah. Oh, Neighbors. Okay, so you're good. Yeah. So you got Neighbors, Debo, and then Henry, Swift, Henderson. I like it. And right now you just hope Henderson is going to take a significant snap count next week and kind of take the most out of those opportunities, because the Patriots are going to be playing who the hell is the Patriots playing? Where are the Patriots? Oh, they're playing the Panthers. And the Panthers have given up the most 200-yard rushing games in any team. Hold on, let me tell you this stat really quick. Which, by the way, they just shut out Atlanta. So, I don't think a lot of people know this, but their defensive coordinator, he's going to be a head coach one day. He's one of the best defensive coordinators in the league. Evero, he's amazing. But with that said, they've lacked talent. I'm talking about Carolina. It is not a coaching issue. Carolina, second team in Super Bowl era to allow 200 rushing yards in 7 straight games. So in 7 straight games, Carolina gave up 200 yards rushing. Okay? They lost 28 of their last 35 games. This was after week 1. I took that note. Liam Cohen, second coach for Jacksonville to win their home opener. Doug Marrone was the first. Travis Etienne, most rush yards ever in a season opener. But yeah, I mean, look, you're talking about a Carolina Panthers team that gave up 200 yards on the ground 7 straight times. So if there was ever a time for Trayvon Henderson to separate himself from everyone, this is the game to do it. So really, this is teed up nicely for you. It's up to Henderson to go hit it out of the park. And if you guys made it this long, Jinja, I know you did. And I love you too, brother. I love all you guys. Thank you for watching the Only Football Podcast. As always, hit the subscribe button if you liked it. And also, hit the like button only if you liked it. I won't ask you to do anything that you don't want. But if you enjoyed it, you got any value, hit the like button. And please come back. We're trying to build a family over here. Today was a big day for us. Yesterday, we went into the night trying to get to 900 subscribers. Trying to get to 800 subscribers. We were stuck at like 798. We are at 930 something today. 920. I can't remember. Or I think it was 903. But we not only got 800, but we got to 900 in a day. Now, this was the biggest day for the channel in the history of the channel. We've never gotten that many subs in a day. And it's all because of a short that I made that is, it got 100,000 more views since I've been doing this. So we would like to take advantage of this momentum. And if you guys are listening, please, give us an opportunity to be a show that you listen to. Right? If you don't like it after a couple of tries, you can ditch us. But I try to give you more value. I can tell you right now why this channel gives you more value than other channels is because I go to, I do this all day. I go to all of my favorite channels, Next Gen Stats, PFF. I'm subscribed to all of these different platforms. I take all of the information and I put it here. So you don't have to get all these memberships, right? I'm kind of like one hub of all of the greatest stuff out there on the internet. And I can't do it without putting in 14, 16-hour days, just gathering the data, the information. And I do all that so that when people watch, they go, man, I'm truly getting more value from this one channel than this other one, because that's really what I want to do. And I know if that's what I do, the channel will grow organically. And that's the way we want to do it. But a little bit about me. I'm retired Navy veteran. I was a naval air crewman. I was going to do 20 years. Got a blast wound to my right leg when a sonobuoy exploded. And all of a sudden, the Navy was medically discharging me with retirement. I came out of retirement, didn't know what to do. I started this channel when I was kind of in the separation of the Navy process. And now I'm looking to follow my dream, and that is to talk football. It's like I do this all day anyway. I just wasn't doing anything with it. At least now that I have this podcast, I can help my family, and I feel like it's not wasted time. But this is what I was born to do. It sounds corny, but when you love something as much as I love the Denver Broncos, it was planted in you. I couldn't choose to be this passionate about anything, and I think that's one of the mysteries of the world is why we're passionate about what we're passionate about. Where did it come from? Why have you never missed a Broncos game since you were 5? Because 5-year-olds don't decide to be, passionate about something and it sticks for 30 years. It just doesn't happen. I just turned 31 years old, so not quite that long, but I do believe that we are given our passions, and I just want to make sure I don't waste it. If you guys are Bronco fans or just NFL fans in general, this is the place that you want to be. I'll see you guys tomorrow at noon for our prediction episodes. And as always, this one's for Bill.